Mountains of content. Some better, some worse. Oh, it says preview. Now we're live, I think. Hi, everybody. If you're in chat, if you could throw me a thumbs up. I don't mean on the video, though. You could hit thumbs up on the video. I'd appreciate it. But just let me know that you're hearing me was the intent of that. You are. Okay. Hi. This is the patron hangout discussion of you know what? I'm gonna call it. Thank you, Russell. It's official. As of today, I'm just gonna say my least favorite episode in the series. There are episodes I struggle with, episodes I have complicated feelings about, episodes I don't find very entertaining. This is it. So, not a great note, really, to start things on, but I figured may as well prepare you for the discussion and where things are going to go. Lonnie, I really need to fix the buttons. I'll take away your bucket. Anyway, so this is Into the Woods. The video is 40 minutes long. I suggested to some people that we just skip the intro, but was told that the intro was one of our favorite parts, so we're not skipping the intro. We're not skipping anything. It's a long video. To me, it's a very much a tentpole video on the channel. You know, one of these occurs every, 6 or 7 videos. It's just so strange. I can't believe that this ended up being the longest edited piece of content on the channel. This beats out Restless by 5 minutes, I think. And I'll be honest, I posted on either Facebook or Twitter. I like to enunciate my words things. I posted on Twitter. I'm not going to cap. We're going to cap the hangout at 10, Russell, but we're not going to cap the overall link. I posted on Twitter that I was editing this video down specifically so it didn't end up being. It felt odd to me that a negative bit of content would be one of the longest videos on the channel. But there was enough of an outcry in the comments section from a number of different people saying, don't edit, don't cut it down, don't do that, please fix this. Beach Girl, thank you for the donation. I don't know how to dance, but I'll dance for you. Insane. Please fix the sodding button starting with the dance of capitalist superiority. All right, Beach Girl, my promise to you, the buttons will be fixed for reunion. Anyway, this video ended up, I just let this video be there. I think I cut probably 5-10 minutes from the original script, but it ended up being as long as, I just let it go long after that. I stopped making aggressive cuts after enough people commented and said just let it be as long as it needed to be. So, here we go. Let's go ahead and watch this review. Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Good Place. in the channel, there are a certain handful of questions I tend to get over and over again. No, I haven't read the comics. I'd like to make videos about Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Good Place, Star Trek: The Next Generation, and finish up the Firefly series. Cookie dough. Seeing Red, The Body, and Into the Woods. I find this episode infuriating. Now, the reasons why are the content of the following video, but look, friends. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. Can you tell? That deserves an eye roll and then a facepalm. There we go. The question, I just won't mute myself. You're going to have to listen to me gulping the Red Bull. I apologize. The question that was I paired up Seeing Red, Into the Woods, and The Body. And the question was, I don't say what the question is in the intro, but the question was, what 3 episodes are you most apprehensive about reviewing? Such clean production. You're going to be the producer, Jack. Get used to this. And finish up the Firefly series. Cookie dough. Seeing Red, The Body, and Into the Woods. I find this episode infuriating. Now, the reasons why are the really fun part about that is we blurred out the red arrow so that it kept the depth of field of the shot. Content of the following video, but look, friends, I don't like to be negative. So for those of you that are just here to revisit the show, the ones of you who leave comments like, "These are the best Buffy summaries around." Thank you, Gina Nits 83. Happy to summarize things you could have just watched in 45 minutes. Or to those of you that have told me, "I don't know why you even bother making videos about Buffy. It sounds like you don't even like the show." When I said I didn't enjoy iRobot You Jane, or she. I don't know why I make these videos either sometimes, absent Father 420. To those people I ask, don't watch this one. You're not gonna like it. Let me save you some time. Wah, 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 wah. Joyce is fine, Buffy and Riley break up, Xander says stuff I didn't like, and Riley leaves. There. I'll see you in the next one. And everyone's still here. No, I'm not going to say that. We're not touching that with Into the Woods. Let's get this over with. Can't let you go. Boo doo doo. Dun dun. Ba ba. We open on a nice scene featuring the gang dealing with their individual anxieties as Joyce has yet to come out of the operating room. I really love the details here, each of the Scoobies managing their stress in different ways, focusing on the minutiae of the moment.
What time is it?
There's a clock behind you, Will.
The doctor comes out and shares the news that, barring complications, Joyce is going to be fine. Oh, just hug you two.
Yeah,
Buffy is so excited she adorably Slayer strength hugs the doc. That evening, Dawn stays over at Casa de Zanya, so Buffy and Riley can have some lovey time.
Alone time always translates into get Dawn out of the house so we could have loud, obnoxious sex.
That's bullshit.
I'm all for the sex positivity the show now has, but come on now. The Riley-Buffy sex throughout, even when they were in the throes of a polterific passion spell, has never looked loud or obnoxious. The furry wall masturbator in that one looked like he was having more fun. Meanwhile, creeping out on the lawn, Cold Blood Von Sweater Sniffer catches Riley stealing out into the night to some back alley. Spike returns the next evening and leads Buffy back to the site of Riley's new hobby. This kind of decrepit set decoration must be fun. Why do I feel like that's probably the tub from Giles's bathroom and the hot water heater from his kitchen? That is the hot water heater from his kitchen. If you look at the rust stain on the side of it and then go back to the other one, it's the same item.
People say they're recycling. They're not recycling.
Anywho, Buffy and Riley's mutual realization at this moment is pretty affecting. It feels texturally unique at this point in the series, an invasion of adult reality grossness on a level that we haven't had probably since another back alley scene somewhere in season 3. There's a lot of top-shelf, moody iconography here, from the heroin-chic vampire prostitute, the back alley implied blowjob. I think there's even a potential drug reading given the location of the bite. There's also a cutting masochism element to this.
Harder.
Riley's inner life has become so intolerable that a little bit of pain on the outside feels better than the story of rejection he has been writing in his head. Sometimes episodes buckle for me under the weight of this kind of material, be it from the "why do you make me hit you" one-off characters, or fascist demon Holocaust iconography, but even if it feels a little bit busy, it works fine for me here since the Riley tailspin has been set up pretty much since the first episode. When he gets home, Graham Grant has brought his superior over. You guys could have turned on a light or read a magazine. What are they all doing just hanging out there in the dark? Wrong answers in the comments only, please.
You're a soldier.
I quit the government a long way back.
We're not government. We're army.
Captain Semantics tells Riley he has a day to make his decision. There's a really great scene where the Scoobs give Anya unfair crap and she sticks up for herself.
If it wasn't for me, Giles would be a terrified old man staring at a quarterly tax statement and wetting himself.
I say that's an exaggeration.
Giles gives Buffy the rundown on vampire pay-to-get-bitten schemes like the one she just witnessed.
The hazards of the underworld can become addictive to some people.
I almost missed Giles' subtle reference here to the Dark Age. Riley goes to Spike to take out his anger with a plastic stake, without co-signing either of their perspectives here.
A girl needs some monster in her man.
Yeah, like that one. This is still a great scene, maybe one of Riley's best in the series, as the two of them commiserate over their feelings for a girl they both believe they can't be with. I think what we bond with is two macho dudes being vulnerable, even if that vulnerability is deeply tainted with some bad ideas. Then Riley finds Buffy, and then... You know what? Let's dig into all this in a minute. Buffy, Riley, ultimatum, words, Xander and Buffy runs to the helicopter in a scene we're supposed to feel like is really, really ridiculously romantic before Riley flies away.
I just want to tell you that. No.
How can I tell it's intended to be really ridiculously romantic? The music. The music is so emotionally specific that it's not possible to headcanon anything other than the episode tacitly endorsing everything Xander said, and by association, the other dude behavior in the episode. This specific bit is a variation on the race for your love or airport run trope.
Well, if Hollywood movies have taught us anything, it's that troubled relationships can be completely patched up by a mad dash to the airport.
Perhaps a subversion, given it's most common to romantic comedies and typically ends with a couple getting back together. But the very use of a trope common to romantic comedies, along with the music, tells us the episode itself, distinct from any of the characters' opinions in it, has taken a perspective that this is all deeply romantic. I generally hate speculating at creator intent or perspective in these videos, because it usually comes up in the context of considering whether an errant line in an earlier season...
That's me as a vampire? I'm so evil and skanky. And I think I'm kind of gay.
...was intended at the time to foreshadow a major development later in the series, and when considering the show taken as a whole, who cares? Intended or not, the line does now foreshadow, so it's neat. Nonetheless, we've still beaten around that speculative bush more than once. Most recently, I tried to interpret Shadow's perspective on mental illness by way of Ben murdering 6 people. In the case of Into the Woods, it's a very relevant question when trying to figure out why, despite a lot of good here, the episode just feels broken. Thing is, whatever name appears beneath the byline on any particular episode, most interviews I've heard with the writing team say that episodes were often written by committee, with Whedon doing extensive and uncredited final rewrites to scenes or entire episodes. It's also possible that any particular writer didn't realize at the time the idea an episode or scene might be accidentally validating. So because I think it illustrates the point a little more clearly, as well as the fact that I'm mainly interested in the discussion of these mechanics rather than throwing any particular creator under the bus, I'm going to borrow a page from Supernatural and just refer to Chuck.
I write things and then they come to life?
We can think of Chuck as both a character on the show and the creator of each episode. Chuck's humanity and fallibility is as much an influence on any particular episode as Buffy's, the Scoobies, or anyone else's. But we're looking through his eyes when we watch the episode, and so have to interpret his perspective through the presentation. Since Chuck picked this music, we can read that he... The edits there, the bit that was kind of... So, the whole deal with Chuck was, I thought it was interesting to think of, or easier to think about. I think thinking about the writers or thinking about the creators, they exist as sort of monoliths through time in my head, where I think of... I almost give characters like Giles or characters like Xander or Buffy or whoever more rope, because we witness them change and evolve and grow over time. And I thought the idea of just attempting to reassociate Chuck as the source of all of this for the purposes of this discussion helped made the human fallibility of it easier to sort of consume or to talk about. And I thought it eliminated some of the problems that I mentioned in the video. But this edit here, which was fun, was adding in some of the supernatural film grain from season 1. So Chuck is having the vision, even though it's season 4, Chuck's having the vision of one of the boys being attacked, and so I edited it according to the cuts that were in the sequence that he's actually dreaming about, and added a bunch of film grain and changed the color of the footage, which was fun.
I write things and then they come to life?
We can think of Chuck as both a character on the show and the creator of each episode. Chuck's humanity and fallibility is as much an influence on any particular episode as Buffy's, the Scoobies, or anyone else's. But we're looking through his eyes when we watch the episode, and so have to interpret his perspective through the presentation. Since Chuck picked this music, we can read that he believes this is romantic, if a melancholy kind of thing to have happen. To further illustrate, let's switch out the tune and see how Chuck's perspective changes. What if it was Chuck's belief that Buffy was about to make a major mistake? These are all Epidemic Sound tunes that are listed in the description. Actually, I think this one is... Or how about the while Xander was talking, Buffy realized there's a bomb on Riley's helicopter perspective.
Xander.
This one turned out so perfect.
Run.
Edit his turn. Da, 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 da. Or Chuck got high at lunchtime and forgot what scene he was writing. We'll dig into why Chuck's romantic perspective of the... It was just important to emphasize that the episode itself has an opinion. The episode is... it's not... We're not drawing strictly on the events to form our own emotional response to what it is. The episode is trying to say one thing or another, and I think swapping out the tunes really illustrated that. The airport run is so confusing to me in just a minute.
All of my friends say...
Thanks to this rewatch, it's clear that Into the Woods suffers for me from whatever the inverse is of the Behind Blue Eyes effect. The Behind Blue Eyes effect is the scene that elicits the "yeah, but" from someone whenever I criticize episodes like Go Fish, She, or Where the Wild Things Are. As in, yeah, but I love that bit where Cordelia thinks Xander has turned into a fish and is trying to figure out how to make their relationship work. Or, yeah, but I love David's dancing and that bit where he pretends to be the tour guide at the painting. Or obviously, yeah, but isn't that the episode where Giles sings Behind Blue Eyes in the coffee shop? I mean, sploosh, am I right? And yes, you're Right. My point has always been that those scenes are wonderful, but they can't completely redeem a borked episode on their own. Likewise, I'm not entirely sure I can say that Into the Woods is as bad as I remember, simply because I find the final 10 minutes of it absolutely enraging. In fact, as with the Behind Blue Eyes effect for some people with Where the Wild Things Are, I tend to only remember the last 10 minutes of this episode. And the thing is, as part 3 of the dreary trilogy here in the middle of Buffy's 5th season, I actually found Into the Woods the most entertaining of the bunch. It's a little bit brighter, a little more pacey, a little more fun than the last two. There are a couple of good Anya moments, the nice bonding scene between Joyce and Buffy, and sitcom volumes of humor. I also like the title. Out of the woods is a very old phrase meaning the worst is behind us or things are looking up. Joyce gets better.
Mom's out of the woods.
But Buffy and Riley fall apart, going back into them. But in the usual mutant enemy way, the title has a couple of possible interpretations. Into the Woods is a musical with music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim and book by James Levine. Greatly oversimplifying, the musical is about what happens with a bunch of fairy tale characters after they've had their happily ever after, and features a scene in which Cinderella confronts her cheating Prince Charming to ask him why he strayed.
I was raised to be charming, not sincere.
I am how they train me.
But then there is everything else in the episode.
Girl, you better take care, 'cause that man is trouble, you best beware.
After a lot of build-up, this one wastes zero time in closing off the Joyce cancer subplot.
Your mother's going to be fine.
And just after the opening credits have rolled, no less. After one nice scene between Buffy and Joyce, Into the Woods mostly forgets about it for the remainder, making it all feel strangely anticlimactic. We've been building to the operation for a while now. Buffy's weeping privately and quietly over a sink of dirty dishes was one of the more painfully adult, melancholy moments in the series so far. Given the bow with which this subplot is tied off, in hindsight, and at this point in the series, Joyce's illness this feels almost purely like a device introduced to exacerbate Riley and Buffy's problems, and once the Joyce bit is done, the rest of the episode is concerned primarily with Buffy, Riley, and Spike. It does have an Anya B story that is as entertaining as it is minor.
And though deep down, I know I might be headed for teardrops.
As we've been building to the Buffy and Riley crash, I've tried to examine the mechanics on both sides that have been deepening the spin. Once Riley started listening to Fear, see what I did there? Specifically his fear that
But she doesn't love me.
any event with more than one potential interpretation was simplified to being validation of that one thing he is most afraid of. And since the Initiative and his metaphor mommy died, he has not been cultivating an identity for himself outside of the relationship, which means all his eggs are in the Buffy basket. In Buffy's case, we've talked about how she's been keeping some things from him and using physical intimacy as a substitute for good verbal communication. Yes, there have been moments where she had the chance to say the L word back to Riley, but there is also evidence that Buffy's love language is touch, as in the way she often interacts with Dawn. And she's already experienced a number of destructive moments in relationships where any emotional vulnerability she showed to the men in her life was used against her. Think of her father, Angel, Parker, or Giles in Helpless. Even the twerpy Scott Buster Keaton Festivus Having Hope saw her dealing with some things and just went and dumped her.
Before we were going out, you seemed so full of life, like a force of nature. Now you just seem distracted all the time.
There are some more outward indications of the value Buffy places on her own vulnerability and intimacy at this point in her life.
I gave Riley the day off.
I don't think he thinks of you as a chore, Buffy.
All of that is to say, and my personal interpretation as a Buffy-biased fan of the show aside, yeah, so that's to set up that, we individually, I think, as fans or as consumers of the show, all have an opinion one way or another. Did Buffy love Riley? I actually don't find it particularly relevant to discussing the problems of this episode. I have my own personal opinion about it, but my argument here was to set up, we don't know. We don't know. She hasn't said, yes, she hasn't said it, but there are plenty of, there's lots of trauma and there's lots of ways of interpreting this as, she's just dealing with things the way she knows how in this particular moment. She may not. I have my opinion as a fan, but none of it actually ends up being relevant to what happens in this episode. So all of this is table setting. There's been a lot to empathize with on both sides of the dysfunction. It's just looked to me like they're both in need of some therapy and a bunch of long conversations about their relationship. That is, until this episode.
Now that you got me started, I just can't stop. No.
As a willful violation of trust, Riley's back alley shenanigans are a huge deal. The descent into vice as a coping mechanism is one thing, but there is no way around the fact that this is cheating, and not simply of the metaphorical variety. Sure, vampirism is a sexual metaphor, but cheating in a relationship is never strictly about sex.
These girls.
Vampires. Killers.
They made me feel something, Buffy. Something I didn't even know I was missing until...
It's impossible to dial down Riley's actions here when he keeps blurring the lines in this scene. Buffy then reiterates the metaphorical cheating when she says,
Tell me about your whores.
And then literalizes it when she highlights Riley going to them trying to get something he wanted but couldn't have from Buffy. It's cheating. Whether his back alley puncture jobs were for the sake of getting metaphorical, emotional, or physical intimacy from someone other than Buffy, and without her knowing about it, it still adds up to metaphorical, emotional, and physical cheating.
'Cause I love you, baby.
And holy hell does Riley lose whatever leg he had to stand on with his conduct in the fight. He opens with an indication that he might be planning on taking some responsibility during the conversation.
This isn't your fault. It's mine.
But then proceeds to list the ways in which he was justified and this wasn't his fault.
I wanted to get you. They needed me.
And I don't.
You keep me at a distance, Buffy. You didn't even call me when your mom went into the hospital.
And makes Buffy completely responsible for whether things are going to work out or not.
I'm leaving, Buffy. Unless you give me a reason to stay.
He never once even attempts an apology, even going so far as to pull the "you went and got your blood sucked first" thing and blaming a victim.
I wanted to even the score after you let Dracula bite you. I wanted to know why Dracula and Angel have so much power over you.
Both of those are, so... Let's talk about Buffy has been bitten, but one of it, that's like assault versus... He made a choice to be in that particular situation. There's no thrall happening to Riley in that particular moment, so there's a major distinction between those two. He nauseatingly rubs her nose into his actions.
It was beyond passion.
And then climaxes by wanting Buffy to resort to physical violence just to alleviate his own guilty conscience.
I'm serious, Buffy. Hit me.
Not completely unlike...
One good swing, you know you won't do.
I will not take the blame for this.
I'm not asking you to.
Yeah, he kind of is. By never apologizing and telling her the reason he was driven to cheat pyres is because she didn't compulsively need him enough, he is once again making her responsible for his actions, something he's been doing since season 4.
I can't let you go, baby.
Speaking of the town sweater sniffer, in his book Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Myth, Metaphor, and Morality, Mark Field summarizes Riley's complaint about the relationship pretty succinctly. Riley loves Buffy more than he thinks she loves him, and since Buffy has become the sole source of meaning in his life,
I'm nothing without her.
Yeah, that'll have to agree with.
Fittingly, given his scene with Spike in this episode, Riley is definitely shoving the idea of love into one single, hyper-romanticized and inexperienced box, instead of allowing for a more diverse gradient of the ways in which two adults can love and be in love with each other. He's been trying to force the Spike model.
Love isn't brains, children. It's blood. Blood screaming inside you to work its will.
Why with the crazy?
Because I'm so in love with you, I can't think straight. Ugh.
But one of the whole points of Lover's Walk was that sometimes the most loving thing two people can do for one another is to selflessly let each other go.
I think that you should leave. This is a good opportunity for you.
What I want from you, I can never have. So I'm gonna go.
That was a painfully learned education for Buffy in season 3. But throughout his Sunnydale tenure, Riley has been playing at the romanticized, parasitic, codependent, identity-abandoning representation of love that the entire theme of the show's second season was rejecting.
Angel, when I look into the future, all I see is you.
It's like the whole world falls away. And all there is you.
But the helicopter romanticized. Look, romantic notions aside, his whole world did fall away, and all he has now is Buffy. The solution is not to push Buffy into a similar state of codependence, but to instead create a new world for himself. As Mr. Platt once told Buffy,
lots of people lose themselves in love. It's no shame. They write songs about it. The hitch is, you can't stay lost. Sooner or later, you have to get back to yourself. If you can't, well, love becomes your master and you're just its dog.
And because Buffy doesn't reflect back to him the same consuming fixation he has for her, he regularly misses something important.
You stayed strong throughout, Buffy. You never even cried.
Oh, I cried. I cried so hard I didn't think I was going to be able to stop.
She's still telling him these things. She's still sharing. She's still being vulnerable with him the way she knows how today. Right now. Buffy gets to choose how she faces her trauma. Being with someone doesn't mean they owe you their literal tears, but she's still sharing her life with him. Whatever Buffy is feeling, a topic I'm deliberately avoiding for a moment, the gulf here is not the one between what Riley feels and what Buffy feels, but the one between the person Riley thought he wanted versus who Buffy is. This is it. This is what Buffy has to give him.
This is it. This is me. This is the package.
I gotta tell you that
But the main reason why the fight ruins an otherwise well-set-up relationship tailspin is the episodes need to have a ticking clock. It's not that I believe ultimatums are inherently stupid. They're not. Under certain circumstances, they may represent the only ability a person has to affect change in a relationship. Your quit drinking or we can't be together variety of ultimatum. A last-ditch effort with clear justification, a clear request, and clear consequence. I thought this all seemed like a pretty big spoiler in the episode guide, but no one said anything in the comments. I was kind of surprised, but obviously the reference I'm making here is to Tara's ultimatum, or Tara leaving Willow in season 6. But this is Buffy and Riley's first conversation about these problems, and none of that clarity. Of course, it's present. A 40-minute video. I had some compassion for him before this scene, but his ultimatum, for a myriad of reasons, is deeply stupid. First, because it's utterly unnecessary.
We can't work this out.
Then what? This is goodbye?
Buffy, there's no other way for me to go back to the military. It's not like there are recruiting stations in every town in this country or that I'll ever hear from Graham Grant again. This is the one and only second time he's been in an episode. Whatever. I only have this one opportunity to rejoin the military. Second, because the ultimatum ignores, backtracks on, or undermines the themes of season 4. Remember how once Buffy, who was never completely sold on the idea of the initiative to begin with, turned on Walsh? All of the major themes relating to institutional compliance and groupthink were channeled through Riley and his arc.
I'm an anarchist.
Remember all of that intended nuance in the 4th season meant to have Riley call into question his biases and preconceived notions, from Angel to Buffy to Oz?
Hey, that's enough. Come on, the guy's a student. I know him. I was wrong about Oz. I was being a bigot.
Yet the argument used in this episode convincing him to toss all that out the window is,
none of us give a damn what makes monsters tick. We just stop them.
Which means that Riley either didn't learn a thing, or he can't find his way on his own without his metaphor mommy, girlfriend mommy, or otherwise telling him what to do. Or worse, he's just taking the offer to have some emotional leverage over Buffy. And the last stupid thing about the ultimatum is he gives her zero clarity about what he wants.
I'm leaving, Buffy. Unless you give me a reason to stay.
What? What reason? Forgiveness for something he never apologized for? To cry in front of him once a day? To give up being the Slayer and make him the solar center of her universe? What reason to stay does he want?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
If this is about what he said to Xander, why hasn't he asked the question yet, do you even love me? Also, bear in mind, the only thing that Buffy has said yet, the only concrete statement she's made about their relationship so far is,
Not ready to talk to you yet.
That's it. She hasn't broken up with him. She hasn't said she'll never forgive him. She has asked for time to process, which he is flat refusing. Ultimately, in an episode that really seems to want to paint Riley in an empathetic light, the poorly thought out ultimatum just makes all of Riley's actions look childish, unself-aware, and, well, poorly thought out.
I've been looking for love so true.
The whole scene also perpetuates the episode's major recurring motif of dudes telling each other that they know how Buffy feels better than Buffy does.
I'm the one that knows what she needs.
Oh, yeah? The girl needs some monster in her man.
Correlation is not causation, Spike. If I grew up in a burrito factory, people might look at me and think, man, that guy really loves burritos. And that might be true. It also might just mean that a pizza hadn't strutted into my life and made sex eyes at me yet. It's possible that these turds are just the best Sunnydale has to offer.
If you touched her, you know I'd kill you for real.
Buffy would have to have been dead in hell or suffering the world's worst depression to go after Spike, and that still would have been her choice. Also, as if his statement couldn't be even more tone-deaf nonsense, he just cheated on her. Eventually, it all just degrades into dudes just telling Buffy directly how she feels.
I can't hear this.
You need to hear this.
I guess the scene is strangely fitting, as lest we forget, Riley and Buffy's relationship was actually founded on him explaining to her what she feels. The story of their relationship up until Hush was mostly one of boredom and confusion. But then Hush happened, and in Doomed, after finding out that Riley was a commando duder, Buffy spent most of the episode trying to get him to leave her the hell alone.
Riley, no.
I know it may seem.
Riley, my answer is no.
A request which he acknowledged, and crazy how much Doomed. I realized it when I wrote the episode guide. It's crazy how much Doomed has all of this. Doomed has all of this annoying... really, I think you want to stay down in the dark, because maybe it's safer there. Shut the hell up. Nobody asked for your opinion. She said no. And he just... I hate it. I hate it. And handled with grace and dignity.
Oh, I mean, you're stupid. I don't mean that. No, I think maybe I do.
Or wait, no, he spent the episode telling her how she felt.
I'm sure that there's some good-looking guy who done you wrong in there, too. But mostly, I think you want to stay down in the dark place. Because maybe it's safer down there.
The two of them then trauma bonded over the episode's diet apocalypse, always the foundation of any healthy relationship, as well as Riley's strong hands and magic cable, and bam! It's not completely surprising that their relationship should end where it began, with Riley trying to ignore Buffy's boundaries.
All for what? All for the sake of literary symmetry.
It's just disappointing that Chuck, the master of all these ceremonies, still doesn't understand why what happened in Doomed wasn't romantic.
It's just Doomed.
But look, to this point, all of this can just be understood as two young, flawed 20-somethings doing the best they can to sort through some pretty significant problems in their relationship. They're making mistakes, they're grappling with their egos and suffering from some flawed and selfish perspectives, but who the hell isn't? It's the accumulation of this kind of life experience that, if we're lucky and willing to go through a process of self-examination, eventually leads us to healthier relationships. So, fine. This is all fine. It's all fine. As long as the episode itself doesn't start down the path of co-signing any of the perspectives.
So, how'd that work out for you?
Oh, son of a bitch!
When I was down and down, along came you.
There are two necessary pieces of setup before the Xander scene. The first is Buffy burning down the Vampstitute heroin den. Buffy takes the Scoobies hunting. The room temperature squatters have moved on. Russell, thank you for the donation. I saw the one earlier. I forgot to acknowledge it. I apologize. Stupid question, sorry. And who is Chuck? Chuck is the writer and creator of this episode. Also, he's a character on Supernatural, whose books come true. Buffy, seemingly in search of payback, pulls a hissy and tosses a conveniently left-behind alcohol burner across the room that starts a fire, potentially putting non-supernatural Sunnydalites in danger, including the fire department. The second bit of justification is this bit in the alleyway. Pimp C. McVampire, who previously threw a fit at Riley for attracting the Slayer to his business, presumably because he didn't want to get staked, decides to attack her in the alleyway because Buffy burned down his favorite rat-infested hovel. A fight ensues with some pretty fun choreography that leads to an emotionally baffling moment between Buffy and Riley's Vampstitute of choice. The cast... Someone said, the common refrain I saw is, she's a vampire, they're soulless. Okay, that does not explain the casting. Casting her as Wayfish with bruises on her face, panting and obviously in fear, was a deliberate choice to frame this character in a particular way. And that way is so that it reflects on Buffy and Buffy's state of mind. If they're all soulless and all of that, then none of this is relevant to the storytelling and shouldn't be in here. But it is, so it's relevant. It's a deliberate way of framing her. Whatever you think of Buffy in a bubble or the ethos of Buffy's job as the Slayer, the decision to cast this character and have her look this way needs to be explained. My explanation is here, but the idea of, well, Buffy just kills all vampires, which is not true because Spike exists, and there are other forms of a chip, is all I'm saying. Here you go. There's also another section I cut from here talking about how Buffy shuts down things which prevent people from being murdered, including the blood bank in season 2, and vamps who are feeding on willing humans who are paying money to do it, which I think is strange, but that was one of the things I cut out of the video. Casting and design of this character is incredibly specific. She is wayfish and underfed, looking as though she needed her vampire super strength just to be able to get out of the coffin that morning. She has bruises on her face, suggesting she has been assaulted by the pimp, or, for that matter, his customers. She is designed to look like a harmless victim. And then rather than staking her, Buffy lets her go before changing her mind and javelining her from across the alley. It's a confusing moment that frames Buffy as cruel and unhinged. And these two moments in the episode feel character breaking. Now sure, Riley, suck jobs, woman scorned, yada yada yada. If you're in the camp that believes the alley and the fire scene are reasonably justified by Buffy being upset over Riley's cheating, I'm curious if you're also in the camp that believes that Buffy didn't love Riley. And if you are, how do you reconcile the two? From my perspective, love him or not, I cannot think of any precedent in the series to justify these two scenes of rashness and cruelty as in character for Buffy. The closest thing to a cruel, dark Buffy we've ever gotten was When She Was Bad, when Buffy was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder after having been killed by the Master. The day after she slept with Angel, he tried to murder her circle of friends, and she was hesitant to stake him. Parker used her, and she was hung up on him for weeks. Dracula broke into her home to assault her in bed, and she quipped at him over his resistance to staking. But there is, however, some reasonable expectation we can have that she wouldn't behave like this. First, there's another harmless vampire in Sunnydale that Buffy has been letting live for multiple seasons now. Second, she is behaving this way over Riley. Let it sink in.
You can have the best time in a car. It's not about getting somewhere. You have to take your time. Forget about everything. Just relax. Let it wash over you. The air, motion. Just let it roll.
Riley. The artificial contrivance in these two scenes exists in order to justify one end.
Something's up. You're acting like a crazy person.
Portraying Buffy as hysterical and in need of some Xandervention. So rather than talking to Riley about what's going on, Riley, who already opened up and had a moment of vulnerability with Xander about his relationship, displaying some willingness to hear what he had to say, Xander badgers one of his best friends, who doesn't want it and is asking for some time to be able to emotionally process what she's gone through. Still, depending on the way the scene had gone, we could have almost forgiven him if it weren't for the fact that...
Though you might be a liar, and
Okay, that's a good time to post the link to join the Patreon Hangout. I am posting that over on Patreon now for people in the $5 and up tier. Again, we keep the seats to 10 and limit talking to about 10 minutes or so, so that we aren't going to be here until 1 in the morning. Today may be a little different, we'll see. But the link to join the meeting is up if you are a patron.
So, how'd that work out for you? Make you feel better?
Always best to lead with the patronizing.
You don't want a deal, so you hide? Not very Slayer-like.
Just leave me alone, Xander.
So you're saying she should punch you in the face, then? Also, important note that when the conversation begins, his conduct is even more unjustified, unwanted, and unfair, because Xander doesn't even know about the ultimatum yet. He's just behaving like this because he thinks he knows better.
What I can't figure out is how you never saw it coming.
What?
That line is so...
Who told you?
Nobody told me anything, Buffy. It was right in front of my Xander face.
No.
But she doesn't love me.
Imagine if Xander had capitalized on this moment, taken Riley for coffee and encouraged a conversation, sat down with Buffy privately in early episodes as one of her best friends, and warned her that something might be up with Riley, and asked her how he could support them both. Instead,
what I can't figure out is how you never saw it coming.
He omits that Riley said anything because it would have made him look bad for never telling her, and insinuates that he saw something she didn't.
I thought he was dependable.
Yeah. I think you mean convenient.
Ah, yes. Remember all those convenient Riley moments where Buffy treated him like he was disposable? It was at this point that Xander began to remind me of Daddy Gaslight from Family.
You shut down, Buffy. And you've been treating Riley
The idea that Tara's dad foreshadows Riley or foreshadows Xander in this sequence is awful.
Like the rebound guy.
Super vague. He gives no clarity as to in what way he believes she shut down or when. If she isn't in love with Riley, then she never shut down because she was never in love with him. Her affection would have remained constant. If he's referring to her conduct since Joyce got sick, then Xander can eat a big old bowl of butts, because the accomplishment to celebrate there is navigating the potential loss of her mom, not doing that while attending to her codependent boyfriend's fifis. At most, she owed Riley some clarity about her boundaries and the path she was on at the moment. And you know what?
It's okay. Just let it out.
I can't. Not now. They need me. If I start now, I won't be able to stop.
Clarity was given. Also, if memory serves, wasn't Parker the rebound or Scott Hope? Buffy refused to date Riley until the Apocalypse bonded. They've had their problems, but he's never been a rebound.
He's the one that comes along once in a lifetime.
False. Completely the opposite. Riley's entire arc was based on the idea of him being a homogenized drone whose personality and moral compass had been dictated to him by the government. Remember the room full of Rileys in matching outfits? After he rebelled, he lost... By the way, we were talking about Graham Grant earlier. One thing I love in this scene, which again makes me like him even more, the more I watch the Graham stuff, the more I like him. Personality and moral compass had been dictated to him by the government. Remember the room full of Rileys in matching outfits? After he rebelled, he lost all focus and purpose in his life other than his girlfriend. And there are plenty of aimless dependents in the world, so no once-in-a-lifetime there. If Buffy had wanted that, she could have just dated Season 4 Xander.
You know, you really should get yourself a boring boyfriend. Like Xander.
That was the idea.
An example of an actual once-in-a-lifetime, which I'm not making an argument for as a sound qualification for dating material, would be something like meeting the only recorded vampire in history with a soul. Riley's. Yeah, once-in-a-lifetime, not a good... There's lots of once-in-a-lifetimes that would be terrible to date. Material would be something like meeting the only recorded vampire in history with a soul. Riley's are a dime a floppy-haired dozen.
If he's not the guy, if what he needs from you just isn't there, let him go.
Okay, fine.
Though you might be a liar,
Xander's following scene with Anya, while well performed by Nicholas and Emma and a bit of a romantic intimacy that Anya deserved a long time ago, has never played right for me. It just can't, on the heels of everything he said to Buffy, which leaves me carrying too much animosity into it. These are nice, romantic things to say, but the scene doesn't actually feel to me like it's about Anya or their relationship, but about Buffy and Xander projecting himself into Buffy and Riley's relationship. It's tough to argue that he hasn't been doing that to varying degrees since Riley came along. The writers themselves have been making the parallel joke from the beginning. Xander and Riley shared the military connection. Riley has been on Xander's Season 4 journey here in Season 5. When he tried to talk to Buffy about Riley in front of the group, everyone thought he was talking about himself. Riley epitomizes the masculinity that Xander has idealized throughout the series.
You know what he's like? He's like a cat. You know, a big jungle cat. How come I'm not like that? It's just so cool.
I think you're cool.
And it's just so telling that Xander doesn't go to Riley to talk about any of this. Riley, who gave him the opening to do so with his vulnerability. Instead, Xander argues Riley's case on his behalf.
I guess the guy's got to be undead to make time with you.
It's really harsh.
Best case scenario, they turn me into Joe Normal.
And that's not enough for you?
It's not enough for you.
You either feel a thing or you don't.
I don't. What am I supposed to do? Beg him to stay?
Why wouldn't you?
Okay. Over-identify much?
I just can't quit you now 'cause I love you. Yes, I do.
To be clear, the episode does everyone dirty, not just Buffy. Xander looks like an arrogant jerk, Riley looks like a schmuck. Making fun of Season 4 Riley was pretty low-hanging fruit that I happily collected by the basketful. He was dull, a little tedious and on the nose, but I've actually come to really enjoy the complexity of Season 5 Riley until we get here. Any emotionally cathartic payoff, happy, sad, or otherwise to all that setup was not this. Imagine if Riley had to come to grips with his identity this season, had to realize how lost he was and build something new. Or if he and Buffy had to have the tough conversation about why she never said she loved him, and they both had to walk away. That could have revealed something for both of them and been a source of character growth. In the end, Riley was fine. Just okay. Not particularly interesting, neither worthy of the vitriol I've seen leveled against him by parts of the fan base, but not particularly worthy of the defense either. Most arguments on his behalf center on him not being the scumbag that some of her other boyfriends were, and I understand the desire to defend Riley through comparison. From the beginning, the show was always framing him in reference to the other men in Buffy's life, rather than by creating a real identity and personality for Riley beyond Mr. Blucas's charm.
I just saw Parker over there. I just feel like something's missing. He's not making you miserable?
But when Buffy wakes up in bed and we feel relief that he is still there, that wasn't really supposed to be a point for Riley, but a strike against her previous dirtbag relationships. Peace prizes aren't given out for being the latest person not to murder somebody. People who give it also deserve to expect a certain baseline of humanity and kindness from the people they allow close to them. Even after they were official, Riley and Buffy always struck me as a couple people would look at and think with confusion, those two? Really? He must be a good cook or something. I mean, Riley and Willow had more chemistry than Buffy and Riley ever did.
Until the day one of you leaves and rips the still beating heart from the other, who's now a broken, hollow mockery of the human condition.
Yep, that's the plan.
Did Buffy love him? I don't know. Only she does, and that's also kind of the point. Whatever this payoff should have been, it needed a very important thing that was missing. Buffy. Buffy's perspective, Buffy's point of view. Maybe through someone listening to what happened and telling her, hell yeah, girlfriend, that clown doesn't realize how great he has it. It needed Willow. Remember when Willow and Buffy debated whether or not she was going to do that thing with Angel?
I think we're going to. Wow.
Or when Buffy came to grips with that Angel was probably right about leaving Sunnydale.
Maybe in the long run that he's right. Yeah.
Instead, Into the Woods is an ending that doesn't serve a single character and develops nothing except Buffy's isolation.
Writing is hard.
I think this episode was crafted the way it was in order to give Riley something that felt like a proper romantic send-off, but their relationship didn't earn a proper romantic send-off, and the episode ends up sabotaging all the good things that were done this season for his arc, by preventing him from learning anything meaningful from it, as well as abdicating his choices to Buffy. But even at the end of the Xander scene, it all could have worked. These relationship mistakes could be chalked up to just a bunch of young 20-somethings and one ego-driven vampire romantic making very human mistakes as they try and figure themselves out. Cinderella, from the episode's namesake, gave her Prince Charming the stinky glass-slippered boot. And Buffy's run to the helicopter at the end of the episode could have been to tell the tofu white bread tooth cushion, hey, I've been thinking, maybe we could have worked this out. But utterly unnecessary ultimatums that prove you to not be the man I thought you were in Season 4 are lame. Make sure to take your slightly funnier identical hand twin Xander with you as you don't let the door hit you in your collective asses on the way out of Sunnydale. Buffy out. Whatever. Anything. The only thing that really needed to happen was Chuck didn't co-sign the events of the episode. As long as the end of the episode didn't frame any of this as romantic or positive, the episode wouldn't break. And it could all be okay.
Xander.
Run.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
The things I put you through. I toyed with your lives. Your emotions for entertainment. So sorry. I mean, horror is one thing, but to be forced to live bad writing.
Okay. Yeah. Let me join into the meeting. First, let me hide my desktop. Just a moment. Go back in. And reshare. Hi, everybody. Jack, can you give me a sound check?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Yay! It's the day we've not been waiting for. The Into the Woods conversation. Whee! Well, Russell has. Okay, Russell. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. I need 2 minutes. Sarah, can you give the whole spiel real quick, and
Sure.
I will be right back.
I can do that. So we have a couple rules here. First of all, does anyone in the meeting, has anyone not finished both shows? Speak now. Okay. In that case, rule 1, expect spoilers. Rule 2 is everybody be nice and respectful. Like, no being mean to anyone, including Ian. And thirst is only for those who consent to it. Jack, do you consent to be? Jack consents to being thirsted at. See, we go with informed, positive consent. Yay! And the last one, a little bit complicated. And in chat, things tend to sort of meander a bit, and that's good. Like, that happens. Stuff comes up. But Jack and I try to watch the stream and make sure things don't go like super uncomfortable or awkward or into weird cul-de-sacs. So if we ask you to sort of get off a topic, just please listen to us, so we can try and keep this as enjoyable for as many people as possible.
I agree. What she said. Hi everyone. So this is Into the Woods. And let me get the timer open. I apologize. I'm still gonna try and request that we all stick to as close as possible to 10 minutes. I realize that's a big challenge, but who knows? Sarah mentioned the last time that after I had posted the video that it was kind of like, yep, that's sorry, I think I can't remember the way you described it. It was like that was all the things. A common comment I've got on that was it expressed a bunch of feelings that people had sort of pent up about the episode that were not. Another thing I wanted to say was when I get frustrated and grumpy about this one, which is a rare thing for me, it's not directed at anyone in particular. Russell, when I was grumping about the vampire in the alley, that was not directed at you. That's me. That's directed at the episode. So I'm a good example of these kinds of contentious episodes do create some feelings, and they're going to create some feelings. But, you know, I think as long as we sort of interact with each other with kindness and compassion, we'll get through it together. And Triangle reunion, and then Triangle is next. And I was thinking it might be fun if the reunion video is done to actually premiere it during the Hangout stream in 2 weeks. But we'll see. We'll see. If wishes were horses, something, my grandma were a wheelbarrow. Tom, you went last the last time. So let's go, Tom, and then we'll go immediately to Russell. Russell, I know you've had some things you wanted to say about this one. And for some reason, it looks like... How do I close this panel? I just want it full screen. You. So, here, I'll just scoot. I don't know. We're just... Sorry, bud. Little discombobulated. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent.
Good.
Now,
how's your weather been?
Well, I have to go outside to know. And since I don't do that, sometimes I don't know. I just look out the window and say, oh, it's raining. It's quite humid here.
Yeah.
Something I'm not used to. Lake effect in the wintertime means crazy redonkulous humidity in the summertime.
Exactly.
But I think I noticed you mentioning plenty of places where you disagreed with me in the comments while we were watching the episode or watching the episode guide. So I just wanted to give you a chance. Tell me about Into the Woods. What do you think of this one?
It's certainly not in my top 50 or anything, but it's certainly I certainly consider it better, or at least more important. Yeah, well, better than Where the Wild Things Are, because at least with this episode, there are consequences that continue on into the rest of the season. There are things that there are character developments that grow the characters and move the story along, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas Where the Wild Things Are, everything that happens in there is completely and utterly unimportant to the rest of the season, to the rest of the show.
Well, I agree with that, but I kind of think you're comparing a breather episode to an episode with a major development in the arc. Like, if you compare Band Candy to Prophecy Girl or Band Candy to Surprise and Innocence, to me that's a more of an apt comparison, where it's like you're comparing one of the best breather episodes from that season to one of the best arc episodes.
Although I don't see Band Candy as necessarily a breather episode, because it does continue story arc, character arcs.
Okay.
And it does get followed up.
Well,
later,
in terms of
later in the season.
In terms of general aesthetics, the comedy, the performances, the propulsion of the editing from scene to scene, I probably agree with you about Where the Wild Things are versus Into the Woods. It's just Where the Wild Things Are doesn't make me angry, which is a personal thing. That's a personal bias.
It doesn't really make you feel anything.
Well, true. Yeah.
It has no emotional connection at all.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. At least that's what makes you feel something.
But is it anger for the right reasons in this particular episode? Are we talking about when you say we're feeling something? Are we feeling what was intended? I'm not sure anger is the intent of the end of this episode. When we're talking about the romanticized run to the helicopter at the end, but I think I get what you're saying.
I think the creators would be just as happy, not just as, but they'd be happy with you feeling anger, because that means you care.
Okay.
Where the Wild Things Are doesn't make anybody care about anything, except maybe touching a wall, and that's about it.
Stroking the furry wall.
Yeah. I do. There are, as you said, there's a lot of this episode is very entertaining. I like the. I'll just say I like the Xander Anya stuff. I like. I'm trying to think. Actually, I think one of the downsides of this episode is it didn't have any Tara at all. Absolutely no Tara.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I wonder if Amber was busy. Who knows how that worked
but this
out.
episode is kind of a almost a microcosm, not microcosm, but it's a demonstration of a major problem with the Scoobies from season 1 on. They're have a very bad time communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Communication is not their strong suit.
No.
The exceptions are often up through season 4. The exceptions was Buffy and Willow, and maybe Willow and Xander. But Buffy and Willow would, actually season 4. Part of it, season 4, is they stopped communicating. Willow and Buffy stopped communicating after a while. But throughout episodes, it's about season 1, 2, 3, seasons 1, 2, and 3. Buffy and Willow, they communicated. They talked. They were best friends. And then college came, and part of the thing of college, you drift apart, you don't communicate as well.
Yeah, one thing I cut from the episode guide is like all of this is in service. Riley leaving and sort of Buffy dealing with it in a bubble, as opposed to with the relationships that are in her life. It is serving a purpose for the arc and sort of what the theme of the season is trying to talk about, sort of the the cold, unkind nature of adulthood, or the cold, unkind aspect of being adults and independent, and from the perspective of the philosophy, the cold, uncaring universe.
Yeah.
Kind of staring back in. But overall, I agree with you. I think I don't remember this part of my personal arc particularly well. Talking about being 20, 21 years old and how my high school friendships were evolving during this time, because it is a period of massive discovery, self-discovery, and change.
Yeah.
And so some of those intimate friendships may have either been put on hold or sort of altered over time, and maybe that's what we're seeing in this particular instance.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't think they've ever been masters of communication. But starting with Dead Man's Party in season 3, I think it's a big struggle over the course of the series.
Yeah.
I think at various times I've talked about, if the source of dramatic tension that your episode has just being driven by something that could be easily cleared up by a conversation, then I hate it.
Yeah.
If it's just people keeping things from each other, which does happen from time to time. One of the things I heard is that we wouldn't have any stories or drama if that were the case, and I just don't think that's true.
It's often called, if it's an extreme case, it's called an idiot plot.
Right. Well,
where something, if something could be resolved by a simple conversation by the two characters, then it's an idiot plot, because especially if there's no compelling reason why they shouldn't talk.
One of the other things that I've heard in response to that is, or a common defense of certain plots in the series I've heard is, but that actually happens in real life. And the thing is, sure, people keep things from each other, but that's life is not a defense of storytelling, as Lonnie says quite often. Real life is not a good defense of storytelling, because stories are crafted. It all depends on what these things serve and the outcome that they eventually do. And I in the episode I threw, when I talked about top shelf themes, I threw Beauty and the Beasts and Hero under the bus for using the "why do you make me hit you" idea of abuse. But the counterpoint to that is Untouched and Bethany, and Bethany's story and what Bethany goes through. Like, one of those is a well-modeled version of this, of something that actually happens in real life, but told as in a story that is honoring and compelling of Bethany, versus something that just sort of feels like the broad strokes that you read about in a textbook. So I don't know. I think I got off on a tangent there. I apologize. Okay. Yeah. What else about Into the Woods?
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's all the goods there. The Spike Riley scene I think is terrific. It's
wonderful.
It's two couple of jerks talking about what Buffy wants without actually asking what Buffy wants,
but it is expressed vulnerability and intimacy from two macho dude bros.
Yeah.
And that's nice. Spike has not struggled with that at other points, but he's still kind of, machismo run amok. And I think maybe that would have been one of the things that, I don't know, I was about to say that maybe something that was missing from Riley's character in season 4 was some vulnerability and intimacy, but then there was his breakdown in the middle of the season and kind of crying over things, but I don't really feel like any of that ever found an emotional core. They were just it was just sort of damage and drug withdrawal, and then it was over.
Yeah.
It didn't feel developing of his character at all. So who knows?
Yeah, there's one hypothetical before I go.
All right.
If Riley had not left, Would he have gotten brain sucked by Glory?
We'll never know. All right, friend. Was there anything else you want to throw out about that episode?
That's it. Thanks.
All right. Let me go over to Russell. Actually, I just broke the thing again. Hold on, Russell. For some reason, I think Google... What are we using? Google Meet just did an update. And I am not used to it yet. Here we are. Wait, no. That's odd. When I click on... Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think Google Meet is acting a little... I saw someone saying that they're getting kicked from the meeting. Sorry about that. It seems like things are being a little buggy. Russell, are you there?
I'm here. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm just gonna... It looks like I'm just gonna have to manual this. Let's go Spotlight. I'll just keep doing that. How's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
I am excellent. Where would you like to start?
Well, first, happy holiday weekend.
Thank you. Happy 4th.
Thank you. And, wow. You know, I feel like this is the bad decision takes on Riley.
Okay.
But after rewatching this episode twice earlier today, because I wanted to be more prepared for this, I was going into this thinking, okay, I'm going to take Riley's side, blah, 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 blah. But there's just, I can't do it.
Okay.
But I don't think he's entirely wrong either.
Well, that's the big challenge of this episode guide was distinguishing between the journey of the characters up to the episode and the execution of the episode on what that was building to. So if you're talking about Riley's sense of isolation or Riley's journey up to this episode, the thing I wanted to stress in the script was how much I empathize with and identify with what he is going through. And, from the repetition of Xander's journey in season 4 and the Who Am I Now and what is it that I do and what is my identity and all of that. It was all sort of... I appreciated the steps and sort of where it was going and what it was building to. It's the payoff in this singular episode that I have a problem with. It's not specifically that Riley, she has not said she loves him. She hasn't said it. No, she hasn't. But this is not the approach.
That was one of my biggest problems is they've been dating a year at this point, and she has never even mentioned I cared about you. Now, part of me referencing this episode, I went through and watched some of early Buffy, and more specifically, I Will Remember You. Okay. You could tell Buffy loved Angel. There's just no question there. And she never showed that degree with Riley. Now, you don't love a person the same way twice, or two different people the same way.
And there are I would say ranges of the ways in which romance and love and intimacy are expressed in different relationships. But I get what you're saying.
So, I wanted to side with Riley at the point that he was grabbing her arm and saying, "Hit me," which I completely forgot about until rewatching this twice today.
Yeah.
That felt abusive, and there's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Riley,
I'm just playing the voice of commenter on your video, Russell. The counterpoint would be, I think a place where some people's counterpoint might go would be, well, Buffy is the Slayer and he can't overpower her, but it doesn't matter. Like, abuse can flow both ways. Abuse can occur between two men of equal power or two women of equal power or two whoever's of equal power. It's not the power imbalance that is the expression of abuse. It's the use of force that is the problem itself in that scene.
It sort of reminds me of when Angel hit Buffy in Sanctuary?
Yeah,
he goes, not to go all schoolyard on you, but you are stronger than me. Yeah, I hate that scene.
Yeah, yeah. I hate the face punching. I hate the decay of that. It's funny. Boris. One of the lines that was cut was the Buffy that this episode, the Joan Collins Tude stuff that I talked about in the episode guide, most reminds me of is the Buffy from Sanctuary, which notoriously is a Buffy that I find. Hashtag not my Buffy. Like, just not. Who is this character? Why is she, but that's a different conversation.
Xander, though, on the other hand.
Okay.
I don't feel like this is kick his ass type of Xander here. I mean, I could see Xander's point. Riley kind of filled the shoes of Oz. And it's the only other male influence that Xander really has other than Giles, which I won't go there, but...
Right, yeah. Giles and Xander have a very unhealthy relationship.
I think Xander's putting a lot of his personal problems with Anya on the table there too, with his little speech with Buffy at the end, and what validates that is Buffy goes chasing after him right afterwards.
Well, you said something that is something. I mean, the joke is, I've I saw that a couple of people mention in the chat. Then you date him. To the things that Xander was saying. But the funny thing is, I think that while everything Xander says in that scene is wrong or misleading, except then let him go, if you... I don't know if you meant to say this, but all of those things could be read as the way Xander sees Riley and the way that Xander feels about Riley and all of that. That Riley is the kind of guy that comes along once in a lifetime, that Riley fills the shoes that Oz left as Xander's sort of model of masculinity and who he attached to in the Zeppo. You are more or less cool, Oz. Think so? So that's interesting, but I'm sorry, Russell, go on.
I'm just thinking a little bit. Riley, again, I mean, I went into this wanting to be a complete Riley defender, and I couldn't do it at the very end.
His conduct
it's not
in the
to
sequence
say
is
that
terrible.
I'm not in Buffy's corner 100% either. I still stand by the fact that she doesn't love him, but Riley doesn't love her.
Why does she run to the helicopter?
That's a good question, and we'll never know.
If you think that Buffy didn't love Riley, then I think
she cared about him.
She cared about him.
I think there's a difference.
But why did she start weeping and run to the helicopter to romantic music? I mean, if you working backwards from there, I think you have to then interpret that there's something wrong with the Xander scene or well, I think it has to be the Xander scene. Now, well, whatever that is, I'm just saying that dissonance that we're talking about, if she thinks she didn't love him and yet she's running to the helicopter weeping, there has to be, then something is off about the sequence before that, is all I'm saying.
I don't know why she ran. That's the problem. And what I concluded is that Riley didn't love her. He never once he was in the helicopter, watched his facial expression, he never turned back and looked to see, is she coming? Is she coming?
Yeah.
He looked forward.
That definitely served that was a plot mannerism that served the dramatic tension. But yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, I think that relationship was ultimately doomed. And I kind of feel a little guilty because I wanted to go into this being a complete Riley defender. But in the end, without the relationship with Buffy, he really serves no purpose to either the show or in Sunnydale. If that was a real world situation, he would serve no purpose there.
Right.
He had no connections.
And wasn't trying to form them. I mean, that's the argument that I was trying to make. I've been in this situation. It was one thing I loved about this video were the number of people who left a comment saying, "Oh my God, I think I'm a Riley." Or I've been a Riley. I'll tell you, I'm right there with you. People who left that comment, and I'll tell you, I was at one point, for reasons I'm not going to get into, I had the thought, "Oh my God, am I Riley?" while I was writing this episode guide. I mean, to me, that is as much as the whole masculinity aspect of it, I think is. His sort of machismo and she's strong and I'm not and yada, yada, yada is way less interesting. His sort of lack of identity and lack of direction, I think, is more successful than the work that was done on Xander's character in Season 4. In telling that journey, that perspective of what that's like. And I tried to emphasize that leading up to this is like, you know, it might have been fun to see him trying to figure that out. You know, there's a diatribe in a previous video where I talked about take a cooking class, you know, get into ceramics, throw stuff against the wall to see what sticks, you know.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say there's also the little things. Remember in the beginning of this episode, Buffy is comforting Dawn. And she's rarely making any contact to Riley. Now, I'm going to fast forward because, again, I've been comparing their relationship to Angel. I know that's not fair, but when Angel shows up after Joyce's...
it's the frame of reference. Right now, specifically, it's the frame of reference. So, completely. It's like, you know, in any new relationship, you compare it to the last relationship as the frame of reference. So,
when Angel shows up in the episode after the body... He holds her hand. They're sitting. They're just holding each other. It's mutual, and that's the one thing that Riley and Buffy never felt to me was mutual. Especially after rewatching this, like I did today. I guess that's what I got to comment on Buffy and Riley. Again,
Well, the interesting thing is they were physically intimate. They. I get when you point out those moments of intimacy between Buffy and Angel later in the season. I think one of them feels like chemistry expressed, and the other feels kind of performative. Where you talk about Riley and Buffy's intimacy, it feels like sort of we are together, so we do this. To me, I don't feel the chemistry from those scenes. That we do in those Buffy and Angel scenes later on. So I get what you're saying. Again, all of the complaints about their relationship, I think, end up being an aside to what is specifically wrong with Into the Woods. Which is unfortunate, because I think that so much interesting stuff was set up, and with lots of mistakes on both sides of the relationship. It didn't pay off.
With Xander's speech, not really necessarily to Buffy and Riley, but I love the fact how it ends with Xander and Anya at the end. I love that scene.
Okay.
And I'd like to think that it was Buffy's conversation to Xander to make him realize just how important Anya is to him. I could be reaching there, but I still love the end of that scene between them two, and I wanted to point that out.
Okay. Well, is there anything else? I'm going to go over to Jack then, specifically after this. So is there anything else you want to throw out about...
Just one last thing. I personally, and I said this in the comments before, didn't feel so bad for the beaten up vampire that gets skewed. Yes, Buffy's motives were wrong, but in the end, it's still a soulless demon.
Sure. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, after the episode is all said and done, should that vampire be alive or dead? There is plenty of justification in that it's in Buffy's job, and vampires that are not chipped are
well, to be fair,
predators for human that need to be removed.
To be fair, she should have spiked or staked Spike a long time ago, but I liked.
Yeah.
But we can get into that in reunion because a lot of that's going to be brought up, not specifically these vampires, but just in general. So, no, I think that's what I got for you, and thank you for listening to me.
My argument is not that. I don't think that is an actual defense of what's wrong with the scene. That vampire is cat. We're talking about the way that story sequence is told. That vampire is cast for a very particular type to create a very particular emotion. And if it's not the one that I talked about in the video, then I think you still have to explain what it is one way or another. But in a bubble, in the broad sense of Buffy's responsibilities as a Slayer, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying the casting frames the story in a particular way.
Yeah. On a final note.
Okay.
When she staked all those vampires. I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Anyway, go to Jack. No problem.
Right.
Hey, you have a good one. Happy
too,
4th.
Dealing with the interface. So where's it going to change layout? Let's try auto again. Maybe that'll work. Before I go over to Jack, is there anyone who needs to leave early? I always forget to ask that question and would like to go first. All right, Lauren, perfect. Let's go to Lauren first, and then we'll go over to Jack. And
can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I guess I'm in the minority, but the Xander Anya thing doesn't work for me.
No, I don't like it. That's
because nothing changes. Nothing changes in the way he treats her.
Okay, say more.
I mean, because he's still condescending to her. He's still it bugs me. I mean,
you're making it like I have a problem with the way the scene plays within the episode, but you're highlighting what's maybe a bigger point, which is that as a landmark, important, specific moment between the two of them, if it is a landmark, specific, important moment between the two of them, there should be some indication of that after the scene is finished, and it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, and I'm sorry, you don't. For in that scene, you don't get to mansplain stuff to Buffy and then turn around and be like, "Oh, I'm a good guy. I'm gonna talk to my girlfriend," and it bugs me. But
I saw many irritated comments during the stream or while we were having the conversation. So
yeah, I mean, I was one of those. Then you date him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, again, Xander should have joined the military right after high school. He would have been stationed in Sunnydale because of all of his knowledge. He would have met Riley that way. And again, you date him.
Yeah, I the more I think about it, it's funny. We talked in season 4 about how having Buffy date Graham and making Xander Riley fixed a bunch of issues with season 4. It doesn't fix Maggie leaving and doesn't fix
No.
Adam, but it makes the season tremendously more compelling.
Yeah, it would. And
In this context, if he were Graham and all of the romance had been sort of channeled through Graham, and then Xander coming to Graham's defense after Graham having been Xander's Forrest in season 4, makes more sense. You know,
your subtext bugle. I like that, Emily.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and Graham. Speaking of Graham, it's like I liked you in season 4, dude. You were awesome. You weren't all this toxic masculinity bullshit. And what? Now that Forrest is dead, you've got to be the dad.
Are you talking about when he says, you don't belong here? Or
I mean, not just that, just like the way he. I mean, yeah, that you don't belong here, and granted, I mean, he is right about that because again, it was just Buffy keeping Riley in Sunnydale, but the whole thing with I don't know, it's like his line in the episode he was in before, where it's like you're the mission's boyfriend. The
thing of it is people move for their partners all the time.
Mm-hmm.
One partner has a job in a particular city or something going on there, and another. And I'm saying this because obviously I've just done this myself. Like in certain relationships, there are certain times when one partner moves into a situation that is maybe geographically less ideal for them because it's better for the partnership as a whole. But then it's still on that individual to build that life, build the connections, to elevate that situation, to not leave it in that state of disorder and uselessness, but not to make their partner the central source of their identity and the person who carries them, lifts them up, and all of that all the time. That's too much to ask of any individual. So I don't have a problem with Riley as a character ending up in a point in his life where he doesn't know who he is or what he's doing. I think that was Xander's arc in season 4. I think it's actually more interesting with Riley in this season. It's just it doesn't go anywhere. They don't actually. Maybe they didn't realize that was the story they were telling. It was precise and specific with Xander that this is what they were trying to do with his character. But here, Riley just sort of ended up that way once the initiative fell apart, and so maybe it wasn't on the writer's mind to. I don't know.
I mean, it's all. I mean, as far as season 4 goes, it's always the whole what if Seth Green and Maggie, I can never remember the actress's name, but what if they never left?
She was in The Insider. We just watched The Insider last night. We went, oh, Maggie Walsh. And whenever I see her she's a Richard Jenkins kind of character actor, where every time you see them in something, you go,
But yeah.
Lindsay Krause. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's Riley could have been done better, and I mean, I think most of us agree with Sarah's headcanon that the reason that she was running there to the helicopter was because she was going to say goodbye to him on her terms, say, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
The music says otherwise, but I wish that was what it was. Yeah.
I mean, let's put like a little. Let's just pretend that okay, we're putting in the music, but as soon as he sees her, there's like a record scratch.
Yeah. Whenever I play that bit in any future episode guide, I'm going to replace the music with something different so that we can all make a new headcanon.
Yeah. Yep. New story, but yeah, it's. I mean, there were a few things that Riley. I did want to give him a little bit of leeway, but honestly, the biggest thing that irked me about it was And Xander did it too. Buffy said quite clearly, "Leave me alone. I'm not ready to talk right now." And both of them ignored her, and they're like, "No, we're talking. Screw what you want."
Yeah, well, she said that to him in Doomed, and he started dating her by ignoring it.
Yep.
Riley, my answer is no. And they're kissing by the end of the episode. So,
I mean, in small smidgen of defense, I mean, his whole thing after that, you know, man done you wrong kind of thing. That was.
Are you going back to Doomed?
Yeah, going back to Doomed. But I'm all over the place tonight. I don't even.
No, it's all good.
But Buffy ultimately went to his room after, you know, they stopped the apocalypse.
She does. The decision is strange.
Yeah.
And not particularly explained. It doesn't need to be, but it's just interesting, all of the beats that play out in that episode. That it's weird that Doomed, which the episode is notoriously rushed because one of the writers was getting married and everyone, the whole writing team was in the ceremony.
Oh.
So Jane Espenson, David Fury, and a couple of that episode has 4 writers, and they're all the heavy hitters from the Mutant Enemy team, are all on Doomed, and it's one of the most erratic, bizarrely put together episodes because it was so rushed, and it's strange that becomes the most foreshadowing of this episode.
Yeah, she loved him for his magic twine.
Yeah.
But I do. Why was Xander giving his speech? That it should have been between Buffy and Willow, and you know.
It's just he's supposed to be on her side.
Yeah.
And the way he goes at her, even before he knows about the ultimatum, is so
it's like,
unkind. It's so unkind, the way he doesn't stick up for her. There's no, I get that must be tough.
Yeah.
I get it's just this.
Well,
I hate it.
And the whole you treated him like the rebound guy thing. Parker was the rebound guy.
Right. They've been together a year or more at this point, and there were multiple times when, like, the whole, I think you mean convenient. There were so many times that Riley was monstrously inconvenient. And they stayed together, and they still dated. Everything he says in that scene is just a head scratcher.
Yeah. But I don't, the whole Xander Riley thing, it's just, again, why don't you date him? If you feel about it that way, and honestly, it's between, there were multiple times throughout the Buffy Riley relationship that Xander, you know, took it upon himself. Like, you know, first of all, he was wrong, but he was giving Riley Buffy's history with Angel.
Yeah, which was in my original script, but I was like,
You need to, you know what, this just occurred to me, Ian. You need to do like a extra features thing where like all of your cut scenes. You know,
that could be a patron bonus
for your deleted scenes for your reviews.
Yeah, I'll put the extended editions on Patreon.
There we go. But yeah, it's why is Buffy's relationship so important to you, Xander? And I do think that it's because he did see a lot of himself in Riley, and he still wanted to be with Buffy. So he's like, well, if I can't be with her, then at least this guy who I can look up to can be with her, which is...
Yeah, the other strange beat in this season that I love, but they've never really grappled with is, but she doesn't love me. And the 1,000-yard stare that he has in that moment, and just the identifying that he does with him in that thing, which I think sets up and justifies why he behaves this way, or why he advocates for Riley. It doesn't make him a good friend, obviously. There's multiple ways to be frustrated with the ending sequence. But I could see him going and doing this. It's just you have to... The run to the helicopter then just isn't romantic. It's just, we understand Xander's motivations even if we don't agree with them. So yeah, I don't know a whole lot. Is there anything else you want to throw out about Into the Woods?
No, nothing about Into the Woods. Riley's gone. He could have been done better. The writer should have done better, but...
House looks great, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
All right, let me mess around then with the interface. I don't know what I changed here, but that's fine. So if I go tiled and then... maybe that's it. Let's go to Jack.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, friend.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
That's great, buddy.
How are you? How are you doing?
I'm fading, man. I'm so tired, but I'm here. I'm here, and I'm somewhat awake. And hi, everybody. Hi.
Well, it is early there in Aussie land.
I mean, it's not now, but it was.
Yeah. We've been up for a while.
Yeah. So you said you wanted to bring me in for some reason. I don't know.
Very calmly and kindly.
You wanted to tag me in. Yeah.
You are an outspoken.
Mm-hmm.
I know you love being outspoken. Advocate of the scene between Xander and Anya at the end of the episode. Okay.
Yes, I am. Yes.
So, feelings about the scene between Xander and Buffy before that?
Okay, so that's a loaded question, Ian. That is a very...
Are you saying I have an agenda in the way I'm asking you this?
Of course you do.
How dare
and I'm
you
the
say
only
true
person.
things?
I'm the only person in this call you would do that to as well.
Yes.
So here's the thing. My opinion on it has nothing to do with Buffy and Riley's relationship or them imploding, Riley's feelings about Buffy. None of that. None of the outside stuff has an impact on how I feel about it. My feelings are simply that Xander is more or less saying, look, if you love this dude, if you truly love this dude, once you strip away all the turmoil and all the conflict, if you love this dude, don't throw it away. That's all he's saying.
Why doesn't he say that?
I don't know, Ian. I didn't write it. I don't know. But that is my interpretation of it. But
because I think what you just said is radically different than what he says in the scene.
That
may be intent and subtext. If we,
I feel that's what he meant to say. But I mean, but there are certain lines in it that bug me too. Now my mind is blank.
You're tired and need coffee.
There's certain lines that Xander says, like, no, that ain't it, Chief. Like, no. But yeah, I don't know. I just think he's saying, look, if you love him, just forget about all the nonsense and just fight for him, and he can fight for you, and it can all just be lovely and beautiful. And although it never is it, Ian? It's never lovely and beautiful.
It's sometimes lovely and beautiful.
It's just sometimes.
I think the thing we talked about in our podcast when we talked about romance is it's important to realize that time doesn't care about the bubble.
Exactly.
Bubbles are great, but they just don't last. There's gonna be
Exactly.
challenge.
And reality comes crashing back whether you want it to or not.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love
Sarah.
I love the final scene between Xander and
So
Anya.
it plays for you. Do you know what I mean by it plays?
Yeah. Like the performances and the emotion of the scene. Yeah.
And it doesn't to you feel tainted by the scene that comes before it. Because you feel like Xander is speaking truths.
Well, yeah, but look, it's inevitable.
I'm not trying to set you up.
No, I mean, yes, you are, but it's okay. Look, it's inevitable. Look. The previous scene spurned it on, yes, but I don't take issue with that because Xander saw one of his best friends' relationships implode and fall apart, and he thinks to himself, "Oh shit, I don't want that to happen with me and Anya." So he goes to her and he's like, "Look, I don't tell you this often enough, but I love you. I'm crazy about you." And so I don't see why one would take issue with that because it's not about Buffy. I mean,
but the scene is cut with shots of Buffy running to the helicopter to try and get Riley. And with that as the context, it cuts
Xander
back
doesn't
and
know
forth.
that.
Sure he does. He knows that Buffy went running after, but he also but we do. What I'm saying is like it is part of the storytelling. The way that sequence is told is by intercutting Buffy running to the helicopter and not getting there. Go ahead.
Just quickly, Kat says, "I see your point, but the problem is Xander's selling him as a once in a lifetime guy." That also bugs me because Riley is not a once in a lifetime guy. No, he's not. Yeah, so no, I agree with your point.
Let's rather than us, because I think what I'm curious about is the treatment of the scene itself.
Yep.
The scene with Anya and Xander itself, as opposed to the specifics of.
Yeah.
You agree there are some things wrong. You think his motivations sort of broadly point towards him wanting to express something to Anya, seeing that time is precious, or whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
Even if everything Xander had said was untrue, it sounds to me. Even if everything Xander had said to Buffy were untrue, it sounds to me like the Xander Anya scene would still play for you.
Absolutely. Look. I'm a sucker. I am a massive sucker. I am.
Then us sort of negotiating the truths that he said to Buffy or what was true or untrue is not really relevant to whether or not that scene.
No. And also everything that comes after, like some people are saying, "Oh, what about Hell's Bells?" and he's still condescending and all that stuff. To me, that's not. I don't consider that when I can consider that scene.
That's something I noticed in the fandom, just sort of broad. I love when I talk about the fandom as though that were the
fandom,
this big living organism.
The fandom.
We all kind of evaluate, or many people evaluate relationships based on specific events, as opposed to just sort of the story evolved
because it's a bookend.
Exactly.
Sure,
Yeah, like this is a particular moment in their relationship, and he's a different man later in the season.
And so look, I get it, but I'm considering it in that moment, not what comes afterwards. But look, most people know at this point that I'm a pretty staunch Xander defender. Not all the time. Sometimes I think he is a dick. The way he acts when Buffy rejects him, that's cringy. That's gross. And but the thing, like some people are saying, he's still condescending and mean to Anya after that scene. Look, he's kind of like that with everybody, but when he is, it's a joke. He doesn't say it with malice most of the time.
Okay,
most of the time. So I don't know. I mean, I just don't think Xander is this big, horrible douchebag that some people seem to think he is. He's not perfect. He's deeply flawed, like all of them are.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's a horrible guy.
Well, the only thing if you remove, so if your contention is that he could have everything that he said. By the way, my stream is now not refreshing. I'm not sure if I lost the stream or not. If we're still live, let me refresh real quick.
I think we're still live.
Okay. If your contention is that Xander could have said, like, if nothing Xander said to Buffy in the scene before was made of truths, and that still wouldn't reflect on how you feel about the scene with Xander and Anya, then I think it's kind of a moot point. My follow-up would be this: the B story that was set up with Anya was the Scoobies make fun of her on a regular basis, and Xander doesn't stick up for her.
And that's so a fair point. That's a fair point.
That as a payoff to what was set up. If he had said that in front of the other Scoobies, different ball game, because he is then it's sort of addressing the issues that were set up. But because of the intercutting with Buffy and Riley, it doesn't feel like a win to me for Anya. It just feels like,
okay,
again, projection. But I just wanted to get your viewpoint because
that's fair.
Unfettered by.
No, I get it, and look, I know that I'm
getting grumpy during our stream.
I'm in a very, very small minority here, and I get that, and that's okay.
I'm in plenty of. When it comes to fandom opinions, I end up in lots of fractional opinions on the show, so I get you. It's not an easy position when we do this publicly.
Yeah, but no, it's okay. I'm used to it at this point, especially when it comes to Xander. But look, this episode, I don't particularly like it. There's some funny lines. I'm just glad we don't have to talk about Riley anymore. I am so glad about that. And this, from here on in, is when the season starts to get really good, in my opinion. So
yeah, it's so funny after the I really like Triangle after the dreary trilogy that we had to deal with. Getting to Triangle, I think, is a lot of fun. All right, bud. Well,
thanks.
I appreciate it. This is going to drive me nuts. I will get better at this. Change layout. Go back to tiled. Fine, I'll just deal with auto. Let's go to Emily.
Hey.
Hello. What time is it there?
It is 1:15 in the morning.
Well,
I'm feeling good.
Thank you for staying up with us.
Yeah. That's right. I'm in a good mood because I watched England get through to the semis of the Euros, and then I got to watch Into the Woods, which got me right back down. Emotional roller coaster.
It's an upper with your downer. Okay, well that kind of sets it up then. Tell me about Into the Woods. Where does this episode land for you? Shared feelings, different feelings.
Yeah, I do not like this episode at all. I would generally put it as one of the worst episodes of the entire show. Like, it's one of the few episodes that I think is just fundamentally broken and just doesn't work. Like, it's not just it's mainly the sort of last 10 minutes, but it's not just, oh, this is a bad 10 minutes and the rest of it's good. The last 10 minutes is bad in a way that breaks the rest of the episode, and just
it's very odd. It is just the music. I mean, you can justify it as the mistakes of or what I was trying to point to the entire time is this it could have all just played this way. I don't know that it would have been satisfying if somewhere down the line she didn't have some sort of catharsis or learn something from this episode. I think then you've got an issue storytelling wise, but the episode isn't broken until the music is telling us, look at how romantic this is. Because music
In a wa-
is a specific indicator of emotion. Nothing calls emotion quite as specifically as music does.
Yeah, you're right. That is like the key point that really just destroys everything.
Yeah, it's a
But I
weird,
also,
it's a weird focal point, but there it is.
yeah, I do think that I don't think there was ever a way that this episode worked, because just talking about Riley as a character in general is just a character I don't think ever worked in the way that the writers wanted him to work.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, obviously everyone's going to have a different opinion on Riley. Some people are going to like him more than I do. But it's generally speaking, the audience didn't have the reaction to Riley that the writers wanted the audience to have.
I think it was actually Marty Noxon during that Mutant Enemy Writers reunion that said that they wanted a Steve Rogers on the show, and then after he was on, the writers realized after the fact that none of them knew how to write that character or that relationship.
It's not Steve Rogers, it's John Walker. He's just I don't like Riley, but I think that sort of nexus point that Riley just didn't work in the way that they wanted him to work, just it was like rotten foundations for everything they were building on beyond that, and they were constantly playing catch up. Like it tanked a lot of stuff they're doing with the initiative, and then moving into season 5, they're trying to play catch up by adding on all this stuff for Riley. Here's like emotional turmoil, but we're not, generally speaking, we're not invested enough in Riley as a character to give him the leeway that you need to be giving a character that's, let's face it, he is acting very selfishly and in a deeply flawed way in season 5, and I think you really need to be invested in the character in order to give him that leeway.
A common counter argument is all the again, even I tried to point to how often defenses of Riley come from, well, what about Angel? Or what about other characters? Or what about when this character did that? Yeah, I agree. All of those instances. It's just we were invested in those characters. There's a very the scene that I think of repeatedly is the Oz Van scene. In my fantasy, you're kissing me. It's okay. I can wait. That scene, I don't think that Joss wrote that episode, or maybe he did, but he did write that scene. And the intention in that scene was Oz had come along and been introduced on the show, but the fandom wasn't taking to him. And so Joss went out of the way to write a scene that specifically invested us in this character, that sold us on him as a love interest, and it worked. That I think a lot of fans. I mean, I love Seth Green, so I loved him from the beginning, and you've really mastered single entendre. You know, I think he gets a bunch of wonderful lines up to that, but that is the scene that sells him as a potential romantic partner, and it's kind of mind-boggling that Riley never gets one of those scenes. I mean, Doomed is a weird faceplant into a relationship.
I think there's a few instances where they think they wrote that scene, the because I love you so much I can't think straight, or I think there's one in, I can't remember now, but there's a couple of moments that try and come off as like romantic and endearing, but just come off as
they're so
awkward
bottom shelf. I mean, compared to
it's just not there. And I think just so when it gets to this episode, it's everything that we've seen before with Riley, the issues and the way this character's written, just taken up to 11, and his entitlement and just the way he really does push the blame onto Buffy instantly in that scene when he he's talking about oh, you let Dracula bite you, and you've been withholding from me, and it's just not stuff that makes.
Yeah, and to not be
look
called.
good.
I think another common frustration is when someone tries to make the "what about" argument. Well, what about the things that Willow does in season 6, or this, that, and the other thing? The distinction is whether or not the character ends up being called out for it. Whether or not it's not the mistake, it is the justice for the mistake or the lack of it. And I think that those are the regular expressed frustrations with Xander's character, with the what am I, mass transportation? That's what a lot of the guys say, but it's just locker room talk. I wouldn't pay it any mind. And calling Cordelia's outfit slutty, who dresses like Barbara Bush in those early seasons, but just never really getting the comeuppance for those kinds of things. It's like, yes, every character on the show makes mistakes, but I think the gradient of our response to it comes from whether or not they pay for them and learn something from them. And Riley's, as much as they were set up and as much as I found season 5's mistakes kind of interesting, I know you didn't, this episode just sabotages any opportunity, and worse, makes Buffy responsible for them without making any counter argument. So it's a lot. Sorry, I hijacked your point there. I get really upset about it.
No, you
or Into the Woods.
Get me back on track, because otherwise I'll just rant about Riley for too long and not make any points of value. But so the point I was trying to get to is by the final scene with Xander and Buffy is one where by that point the episode is so fundamentally broken, and you can see the gears of the writers working behind it. They're trying to get us to a place, the point of the helicopter run, to get us to sympathize with Riley, to get us to want Buffy to go find him, because they are trying to create a romantic lead that we want to root for.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah. And it's so in that scene, I don't get mad at Xander at all. I have no negative feelings towards Xander, the character in that episode, because
how must that feel? That must feel amazing.
It's solely because I have no Watsonian investment in the show at that point, because I'm not feeling the characters. All I'm feeling is the writers want me to feel this way. The writers, everything is pointing to you should be seeing things from Riley's point of view. You should be wanting Buffy to go and get Riley back, and I don't want that. And it's just it just feels fundamentally wrong on that level. And so I'm not seeing Xander. I have no justification for what Xander's saying. I don't really want to justify it, because it doesn't sound to me like Xander. It sounds like the writers telling us what we should be feeling.
Yeah, again, I just think that whatever their issues were leading up to this episode kind of renders irrelevant, because it doesn't actually grapple with them. It doesn't actually. It goes off on this particular limb, and it breaks the whole thing. So I still get mad at Xander, but I imagine it must feel nice not to. So I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. I just shift that all onto Riley.
I don't like all the bad Into the Woods feelings.
Yeah, so I watched this episode yesterday. I watched both this episode and the puppet show, and I think that is just something that should not be allowed for people.
That's a weird pairing.
Yeah, it's. I've got a project where I'm writing an essay on every episode, and that's up next.
Oh, nice.
So,
nice. Yeah. I think it was Tom that mentioned earlier that I mentioned this is one of my least favorite episodes in the series, and Tom I think fairly mentioned that. Well, I enjoy this more than where the wild things are. And I think I agree with that in sort of a fundamental minute-to-minute enjoyment of the episode. However, you used the wording that I specifically forgot, which was broken. When you talk about to me, there's a difference between failed execution versus broken execution, where an episode maybe set out to do a particular thing or have a particular theme, and ended up campy or not as compelling, versus an episode telling us that the sky is red when it's blue. And that's what Into the Woods feels like for me.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard for me to say what my least favorite episodes are, because you can sort of split them into two camps. You've got the disposable monster of the week, your bad eggs, your where the world things are, and then you've got like this kind of breaks part of the arc. It's got some good bits, but there is like one section that is just broken. Like places.
It's the aesthetic conversation versus the personal conversation. Like aesthetically, I understand all of the complaints. And then you have the issues with seeing red, which are sort of broader issues with storytelling as a whole and treatment of minority groups and this, that, and the other thing. So, they're radically different conversations, but I think the conversation is fun and still worth having.
I might actually defend seeing red by the time we get there, but that's
See, Jack doesn't understand. I love defenders. I love when someone comes in and defends contentious scenes. I love it. I want those opinions. I want to have more fun than I actually have with a particular scene. Jack's my hero. Jack. Sorry, I didn't mean to make it weird. Is there anything else you want to throw out about Into the Woods?
Oh, yeah, I've got like a redemptive reading and then one little note, if that's cool.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So the scene in the alley with the vampire, she lets her go and then stakes her. So I don't think this was intended by the writers, but I like to see it as a metaphor for what's going to happen with Riley. This is right after she gets the ultimatum.
I saw that mentioned in chat.
She's going to let him go. She probably should have let him go. She should have let the vampire go. She makes the decision to, at the last moment, changes her mind, goes after them, and that's probably not the right call. I don't think that's intended by the writers, but
intended or not, I think that reading makes that scene more interesting. I have to digest it a little bit to see where I end up on it, but nonetheless, I always prefer more interesting to when we're sort of stuck on the why of a particular scene.
I think it doesn't make that much sense in character, like with what the writers actually intended.
Well, it's a structural justification. I think there's still an issue with the motivation for her character, but structurally, I think its inclusion is more interesting that way, for sure.
Yeah.
And you said redemptive.
The other thing, that was the redemptive.
Got it.
So the only other thing, there's the whole scene with Riley and Buffy. As much as it angers me, there are a couple of really nice bits of foreshadowing for Buffy's relationship with Spike in season 6 that I noticed. Like the way Riley talks about who I call the sucks workers that he's visiting.
Okay.
I think he talks about how they need him. Like he's not necessarily feeling affection for them, but they're desiring him, and that makes him feel worthy. And I kind of see that as similar to how Buffy has sex with Spike, not partially because she's attracted to him, and partially because she's validated by his affections. Like, there's that moment where she's like, tell me you love me. And
there's an interesting I got a little distracted there because while you were talking, Buffy's response is, sorry, the ADD kicked in. They needed your money. But what's interesting is he's turned on by the idea of how much they wanted him, which is kind of like a turkey being turned on by the way humans look at him. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that they want to consume every part. That should be horrifying. There's something grotesquely fascinating about his being turned on by that. But anyway, I'm sorry about the ADD. If you can steer us back.
Yeah. So, I just thought that was interesting. There's a little parallel there. And there's a line that I really like. I think he says, on some basic level, it was about me, my blood, my body, and that's like season 5 has a really strong like blood motif, and that was just like sprung out at me as like it's kind of foreshadowing the end of the season.
Definitely elements of it.
Yeah, this is, there's a couple of other lines. I think Xander has one in Buffy versus Dracula where he's talking about blood is life, and obviously the Spike has his in The Gift. It's just there's a lot of those little lines sprinkled throughout season 5, and
it's always got to be blood. Yeah, blood's a big part, a big symbol in the season. It's Summer's blood. It's just like mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a fundamental, like it's life and it's also identity. Like it is like a sense of blood. I don't know. I'm rambling. It's life.
No, all good.
It's life.
Well, let me go ahead and move on. I appreciate your time. Let's see if I do this. Okay, that's the way we're just gonna live with that now. So let's go over to Wonder, and then we'll go to Boris. Wonder.
Hello.
Hi. Haven't seen you the past couple. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How have you been?
Well, I'm talking about Into the Woods, but it'll be over soon.
Well, I'll try to keep it brief, but there's a lot going on.
No. Talking to you all about it is a joy, but I'd much prefer to be talking about a different one for sure. So tell me about the episode.
So I do think that Buffy loves Riley. I think that there's a lot kind of going on there. When she was in the first seasons and had a relationship with Angel, she more looked at.
Hang on one second. We're getting a ringing or a music box in the background. I don't know if there's something you can do about that.
Yeah, there.
Just so I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think she kind of was looking at slaying just as a gig, and in this season is when she kind of starts to. When she tells Giles, I need you to be my watcher, I need to really understand this. I think the turning point for her as a slayer. And
for sure.
And I think that's part of what's playing into kind of not certainly like she's always wanted to keep Riley safe, but also when she came back and met Faith, and she tells her mom, "Look, I'm just getting back to my life. I don't want to go halvesies on it." And I think that she's kind of shutting him out of that area, partly because she doesn't see him as being able to hold as much power as she does. She wants to keep him safe. But also she wants that time to explore that part of herself. And also the relationship with, certainly been hurt in her relationships, and when she was completely all in with Angel, not just the turning into Angelus, but also past that, she was completely all in with him, and he left.
Are you talking about in season 3?
Yes.
So they begin to date again. Yeah, that's a turning point that I think that season 3 at some point switches to setting up Angel's story and kind of stops serving Buffy's. So at the end of Lover's Walk, Buffy walks in and says, tell me that you don't love me. And that's the only way that Angel says, there's got to be a way we can still see each other. She says, there is. Tell me you don't love me. And he can't do it. And she says, so I'm going to go. And walks out. And I love that beat. I love Buffy taking care of herself. I love Buffy owning, which is completely missing from this episode. Buffy getting a chance to own her motivations, her feelings, where she's at, and to make a decision and choice about sort of herself and where things go. Amends then happens, and Buffy believes that Angel can't be left alone, and then they sort of fall into this sleeping in the same bed together, waking up together, dating kind of thing, which flies in the face of the decisions that she had to make in season 2 and sort of where all of that went. That gives Angel a chance to make the choice that sets up his entire series, which is to leave Sunnydale and to set out on his own. I don't know how you tell that differently. I always get frustrated by that the everything after Amends to me feels like it sabotages some of what Buffy got to do at the end of Lover's Walk, which is to sort of understand herself, take control of the situation, and grow. But again, I don't know how you do that differently. But all of that you're pointing to, that in the Angel and Buffy's interactions in season 3, I think are much more thoughtful and well communicated, even from when he says he's leaving, and she has the conversation with Will and says, I think maybe he's right. He says, I'm not going to say goodbye. They see each other. They make a difficult adult decision, despite the fact that they still love each other. None of that exists in this. Or are you saying it does? I'm sorry. I'm
saying that's still a trauma.
That's still a trauma.
It's still a trauma, and
sure, yeah, I agree.
I think that Riley and Buffy built this relationship up to a point, and then right before she could say the words "I love you" and really fully commit to that relationship, it's kind of she's at this point where she's just afraid to do that. I think she does love him.
Okay.
And I think that that's part of it. I think that she's starting to look at her slaying differently. Before it was more of a gig, and it starts to evolve more into this is my calling, and she wants to go really deep with it this season. And she's, I want to commit to it. I want to do this, and she's not. I think that with the faith thing, she's not looking to kind of share that part with Riley right now. And so I think there's a lot that Riley gets shut out of. And
is there, though? Is there a lot that Riley gets shut out of? I mean, she backs away when Joyce gets sick, which I think she absolutely has a right to do. But I'm struggling to think of other stuff that he gets shut out of besides that. Am I missing something? Or is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, she certainly has a right to shut him out of, that aspect, but it doesn't make him feel any better.
No, it certainly does not.
And also, I think also suffers from the problem that's similar to what I would say about Dawn. People seem like Dawn is so whiny, and she always has that aspect to her character, but she goes through the season where this whole thing where everyone's trying to protect her and keep her safe, and everything's kind of surrounding that. And then the next season, like, Gloria's gone and she's not in danger anymore. And it's kind of like last season, you have the whole thing with Riley and the initiative and trying to get him out and trying to convince him to think for himself. And there was so much surrounding the initiative, and she was in the initiative with him, and then she was trying to pull him out of the initiative. And now, like, that's kind of settled.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got other things to worry about, and it's kind of just like that sudden deficit of attention.
And you're saying you're wondering why fans don't hold the same grudge against Dawn in season 6? Okay, I think I missed something. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that with Dawn, like, there's always that, like, oh, she's so whiny, and especially after this season, I don't know, I've noticed it seems to be, like, complaining about it more, and I just think that there was so much attention placed on keeping her safe that when, like, that threat is over, I think Dawn was just kind of like, wait, where's my attention? Where's my attention?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, and I think that's definitely the case. And once she loses Buffy, and Buffy sort of becomes self-interested, sounds like such a judgmental negative term. It's not the way I mean it, but recovering from some pretty significant trauma in season 6, and Buffy has been sort of, look at the affection that Buffy's able to deliver to her in this season. She has some struggles in season 6 for sure.
Yeah, so I think it's like there is a lot of attention placed last season on Riley and the initiative stuff, and I think that once that was settled, there's kind of this, there's not as much attention that Buffy is paying to him, and it's just like, wait, I had all this attention and now it's gone. And so I think there's a lot. I think there's that. I think that there's Buffy not being kind of a little afraid to fully, like, show that love, because obviously, at least to me, it's obvious. It says, with her running to the helicopter, like, I'm of the opinion that she loves him, but it's just not willing to fully, like, it's too afraid to fully go there.
I think that reading is there to be made in, whatever arguments you want to make about chemistry, I think that reading is there to be made in the text. That she is suffering some trauma from some pretty heinous intimate experience, including Giles and Helpless, which is one that I think we've easily discount. But, both fathers in her life have at various times broken her trust and safety, a sense of safety. Then you've got Angelus, then you've got Parker. I think that there is plenty of evidence to suggest that Buffy has intimacy issues and vulnerability issues. And I wish that's what Into the Woods was about. My argument is that that's not in this episode. This episode is not the payoff to that setup. That setup is there. Does she love him? Does she not? Why has she not said it? It's just Riley's ultimatum and communication of that to her in the scene is so ham-handed and blamey and not about those things that it all kind of got lost. But I agree that I did, like, as a fan, my feelings is that I personally didn't see that from Buffy compared to other relationships that she has on the show. But but that's personal interpretation because she never said one way or another. And my whole point with the episode guide was, we don't know. And that is not what Into the Woods is about either. Into the Woods breaks, unfortunately. So, but I agree with you. I think I think that reading is there to be made that she has vulnerability issues, intimacy issues, and that is not just reflected in her relationship with Riley, but her communication with Willow and the rest of the Scoobies. Is things have sort of become fractured, and they've been growing apart for a while. Her, like, the most intimate conversations she has over the coming seasons are with Spike. And holy jeez, is that a problematic person to be, doing that with as it plays out. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to throw out about Into the Woods?
A couple things. One is the emaciated vampire. I think that the reason that she was cast the way she was is because taking off vamp face and going just in regular human face has kind of been this sort of shorthand when characters want to convey, look, I'm human, I'm a person. Mm-hmm. And that would not work. If she just like took off her vamp face and was just like, see, I'm human, like that wouldn't, I don't think that would convey the message, because she's not a character that we know or care that much about. So I think that she was cast in that way to elicit such of like, this is helpless creature, but she, like I said, I think that Buffy does love Riley, and that's why she is so burns that thing down. That's why, as soon as she's not looking at that emaciated face, she javelins her. I think that if Buffy doesn't love Riley, then yeah, those actions were out of character. If she loves her, if she loves him, and then he's out there, just going, hey, I need something I'm not getting from you, and I'm getting it from her, and he hasn't brought any of this up to her. It's just like this huge jump of emotion and stuff, and she just doesn't know what to do with it. She loves him, and she's angry at him, and she needs time she's not getting, and
yeah,
kind of explodes. But my point was just, I think that she was cast that way because just going to human face is not going to work for that.
Okay.
And the other one was, I think that Xander, once Riley told Xander she doesn't love me, I think that's what Xander definitely could see, starts picking up on all these things from then until now. And it's like he's planted that seed and then sees all these things that to say, well, I can't believe you didn't see it. You had the seed planted. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, you noticed it all. Somebody said something.
I hate that line. It was right in front of my Xander face. Oh, shut up. The reason he says that is because he can't at that point go, yeah, so like Riley told me like 3 months ago that you guys were having some problems. Why didn't you say anything? It's too little too late at that point. And it comes off as him just saving face and protecting himself to make himself look better, which, holy jeez, is just, it's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe he thinks that all of these things are obvious, but I don't think he's making the connection between he told me this and then I noticed it all.
I mean, that's one interpretation.
I don't know.
Yeah, if he hadn't been so sanctimonious about it, I think, hey, I forgot that he said that. Might be a defense, but we'll see. I do need to move forward, though. Is there one last thing you want to throw out?
No, that's it.
All right, good deal. Let's go to Mr. Boris.
Hello.
Hello.
Right.
You thought this was going to be a confronting, challenging conversation. I think it's going swimmingly.
it hasn't been as many like tussles as I might have expected. But, you know.
Well, I tried to get Jack to tussle with me, but I don't think he's had enough coffee.
Yeah. Coffee will do it to you. There's a lot to say on this. Like, there's too many things to talk about. Like, some stuff's gonna have to get left out, but
sure,
we'll see what we can do.
Pick your top 5
of what
most important things to talk about. Yeah,
I don't know. It's hard to pick. I guess just we'll start from general thoughts on the episode. Like, I'm not really that crazy about the episode in general. Like, it's not really the most fun or engaging watch, but like, I guess it did things.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm really tired.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the bounce off the Xander face thing. I think the idea with that line is that like he's talking about like just like sensing that like things were imploding. I don't know if they really realized like put two and two together as far as like Xander could have possibly stopped this the whole time or like interfered earlier.
No, well, maybe not. I mean, the part of the reason that I went to the Chuck as an example here is, I mean, obviously I don't like throwing any particular writer under the bus unless they're a writer that was on the show once or twice. But, you know, these things are giant moving entities. And I know that Joss actually filmed parts of this episode. Specifically, I believe he was in the helicopter with Marcus Blucas on camera filming the end of the sequence. So the episode to me smacks of needing to move the pieces to particular places. This does set up Buffy's isolation, which is a big part of the run-up to the gift. If everything just gets taken away, I don't see the point. But part of the value of, or part of the reason that pays off is if she values the thing being taken away, you know, and obviously her mom, she values being taken away, but, had this, I can see in the writer's room, knowing where that was going, them saying, okay, well, we need this to end in a particular way, because it's going to be setting up, you know, the cold isolation of adulthood that the gift is kind of symbolically about. It's just that the relationship that went before this didn't earn that payoff. So again, you just have that problem of giant moving parts, which, you know, this is not the first plot episode to feel creaky. You know, in your Into the Woods, or not Into the Woods, the Iron Team Goodbye Iowa way of feeling like creaking and pieces moving and all of that. It's just usually they do these so well, or at least emotionally have big, strong emotional payoffs like Wild at Heart, where this one turns into kind of a head scratcher. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of what Buffy felt, or like the what the overall thing was, like one of Xander's lines in this was like he said like if you're gonna cut him off, like you should have like a clean break and stuff. And I think if anything, the big issue that Buffy has from this is like a lack of closure, as far as like she didn't get to like cut it off like with him nicely. Because like, you know, he left with the helicopter and whatnot, and like it's kind of backed up in season 6 a little bit, where she's like, you know, she wanted to like say some stuff and whatnot, and this also ties into like some stuff I've been thinking about, like, and like it kind of ties into the idea of like I think it had to be Riley and As You Were and not Angel, as people have suggested, because like, you know, as has been mentioned earlier, like the two big things that led to her downfall in season 5 were like, you know, Joyce's death and, you know, the whole Riley relationship thing. And like with As You Were, she's able to get some closure on that and kind of like, get some more confidence to break up with Spike. And then like in Normal Again, she gets like a fake Joyce to like kind of get some closure on that. So like, having those two things are
I
kind
think
of
I think you're definitely highlighting the intent. Normal Again is for Buffy to get some catharsis about losing Joyce, and As You Were is the same. But I think As You Were suffers from problems that were created by Into the Woods. In terms of it feeling as I love Normal Again. I understand that the community has an issue with the ambiguity of the ending. I think it is a wonderful episode, and her chance to say goodbye to her mother makes me cry every time. But As You Were gives me the bad Into the Woods feelings.
Yeah. Well, I think Normal Again has its own share of problems, like Joyce sending Buffy to an asylum, and that creates like a whole bunch of things. But we don't have time for that right now.
We'll get there.
Yeah, other things to bring up. You mentioned how like all the men are like telling Buffy how she feels and stuff, but I think it's worth pointing out that Buffy did kind of do the same thing with Riley during this conversation. She was
in
like,
the conversation.
Yeah, because she's like, you can't handle it. I'm stronger than you and stuff. And then he's like, no, it's not exactly it. That's easy.
Riley has been pouring out his feelings in that moment. Buffy has asked for time. No one in the episode asks Buffy how she feels. Riley and Spike have a moment where they talk about their feelings. Riley barfs his feelings all over Buffy in the fight. Buffy points out previously, and Riley even agrees, that he has an issue with her strength. But again, no one asks Buffy, even one of her best friends, how is she feeling? If you're trying to make an argument that there are mistakes on both sides in that argument, okay, I think there are some mistakes on both sides in that argument, but I find one person's conduct who, we'll say, starts it from a losing position and falls farther, way worse than the other one. But 6 to 1 half dozen the other. I still don't think it's the major issue of the episode.
I guess to back up to Spike for a bit, I think it's definitely worth appreciating how much he's been manipulating this whole situation. Like, he's been screwing with Riley for most of this season, and then like, he gets Buffy to see the stuff and whatnot. Which, by the way, I do kind of question why Buffy would like follow Spike to that location without like any evidence or like reason.
So the phrase that I saw you use in chat was, what about the fact that Spike has been gaslighting? I saw you use the term gaslighting Riley.
It's kind of gaslighting as far as like he's manipulating him, like because he does this thing where he's like he says like, you're better off, man. You're actually like you got the better deals. Like he's being very manipulative. Like, and like the thing is, maybe gaslighting is a strong word, but like you also use gaslighting with Xander, so it's like it's kind of open.
It's I don't think I codified it, but it's interesting that he most reminded me of Daddy Gaslight in the final fight sequence, given that nothing that he says is, to me, accurate of anything, other than if he's not the one, let him go. But back to your point, Spike Yoko factored everybody in the group, and Riley found out about it after the fact. Why is he taking relationship advice and feedback and criticism from Spike this season? That to me is not on Spike. That is on Riley. Who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows them?
Well, like, even if you've been manipulated once, that doesn't mean you can't be manipulated again.
True.
And that has happened with Buffy at times.
I feel like there's a saying. Someone should make a saying about, being fooled and then being fooled again.
It, like, fool me twice. That one, like, but at the same time, like, it's hard to get out of these patterns sometimes, especially when Spike is, doing the Spike thing and like playing the long game.
I'm not disputing that the setup to get to this situation wasn't convincing or easy to empathize with. I absolutely agree. I think that it's played like a coincidence of circumstances. Spike happens to be in the right place at the right time to twist the knife. Oh, she didn't tell you? Her mom's at the hospital. Funny, I was there. Well, Spike was there because he was stealing her underwear. But he leaves that out. So of course, yeah, I think that Spike is a very capable manipulator. It's just there's no Yoka factor moment where Riley goes, "Oh, I got duped again," and and learns a lesson from it. None of the setup pays off in a way where Riley learns a lesson and grows. Nobody grows as a result of this.
Well, this was As You Were, you get his revenge, kind of, where like Riley screws Spike a little bit. That's pretty good.
Sure. I think Buffy is collateral damage in that again. But we'll get to As You Were. What else you got from your top 5?
I guess one of the larger points I had is that like I feel like there's a spectrum between codependence and like whatever is going on with Buffy and Riley right now. And like you used Olivia and Giles as like an example of an adult relationship, but like with that relationship, it seemed very much like a friends with benefits kind of thing.
Well, the scene that I showed specifically in there, and you're not wrong, it is difficult to come up with visual examples of healthy relationships in the Buffyverse. But the reason why I picked the Olivia and Giles situation is because in that conversation, it's post the events of Hush, and she's talking to him and saying, "Your world is scary." And he says, "Too scary?" ? And that it cuts away, but the suggestion is that they're having a conversation about whether or not that she can continue with the relationship to be in his world. They are talking about their relationship in that scene as much as they are talking about the world that Giles lives in. And that is something that is missing until we get to this episode with Buffy and Riley. Relationships need maintenance. You periodically need to go, "Hey, how are we doing? How are things? Are you happy? I'm really happy. But is there anything we could be doing better together? Are we on the same page?" And they never have those maintenance conversations.
Yeah. And I guess back to it's kind of funny that like a large part of the conversation has been like how Riley doesn't have a job or like he's not making connections, but it's kind of funny to think like we didn't really expect that of Angel too much.
Well, Angel's a vampire with weird unlimited resources.
Well, yeah, but like we still give him a pass, so it's like what is the fundamental difference besides the fact that Riley is a human, or like that maybe Buffy is more invested in Angel or something like that?
Well, first, Buffy and Angel's relationship is considered unhealthy in the text of the show, so I'm not sure what you're making an argument for. But why is Angel better than Riley?
Well, I mean, like I guess in terms of the relationship or something, I don't know.
First of all, I think you're making a comparative argument in defense of Riley, which I suggested in the video. Is I just don't think that. I mean, I have my own problems with Angel. I don't think that it's an adequate defense of pointing out that other characters on the show or other relationships have negatives as well. It doesn't tell me what Riley's positives are. Do you know what I mean?
Well, also saying we're not invested in Riley is not really telling us much either, because like there's been all this conversation about chemistry and investment, and then like it's hard to really quantify exactly why one works and why the other one doesn't. And although you do mention like consequences and stuff, but even that can get kind of vague in certain areas.
Boris, do you like Riley?
I kind of do.
Your smile tells me differently.
I do kind of though. Like, I mean, you like Dawn. We all have our.
I don't dislike Riley, but I think that's different than liking a character. I don't think
said he was
Riley
boring,
deserves. I don't think he. Sure, he's dull. He's on a show. He's on a show of quirky, high personality, interesting characters. Does Riley stand up next to Oz, or Xander, or any of the other characters that are in the primary group? No. Does that mean that there's something wrong with him? No. It just means it like other people's positives don't point to me, aren't a negative for Riley. I'm just saying, if you don't hold Riley in high regard yourself as one of your favorite characters on the show, then I think you get what we're talking about. You just feel the way I do, which is that he doesn't deserve the flogging that a lot of the fandom gives, which I would tend to agree with. I think that he is in season 5 much more interesting, and it's an empathetic journey. It just never pays off, which also becomes a problem with empathizing with him, because that never becomes a complete journey that he can learn from and grow from. So it's just the negatives of that journey. But nonetheless, having been through it myself, this is a rare time when I go, everyone hates on him, and I go, oh, but I've been that character, so, and have that connection to him. So I get it, man. I'm just saying there's a broader conversation here is all I'm trying to say. But give me one more, and then we've got to move on. We're super late. I knew we'd be late for Into the Woods. To anyone hanging out, if you need to drop out, totally understand. I knew this was going to be a longer conversation. I want to make sure that I get I think we have Jen. Actually, I think we have Jen. So but Boris, give me one more.
Yeah. I guess there's not like too much grandness to go over. I guess I'll just end on some funnier things.
Oh, and
like,
Sarah. Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, yeah, Sarah too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I kind of find the Doom thing kind of funny, just because like I saw a reaction to Doom recently, and like not only did they really love the episode, but they liked Riley a lot in it, and it's just kind of funny contrast.
I have heard that opinion. This is the thing I've learned from the channel. Every opinion exists.
Yeah.
Every opinion exists.
And I also just wanted to say, you doing the song in the video was pretty funny.
Oh, thanks, man.
I laughed at it. It was good. So
it was a weird intro.
Yeah, so I'm a little woozy, so I think we'll just move on to other things.
All right, bud. Let me go to Jen, and then we'll wrap up with Sarah, last but not least. Jen, are you with us?
1 second.
Yeah, take your time. I know how these things go. Hi. We're a little laggy, but I can see it.
Well, this is the first time you're seeing me.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Thank you for being so patient. We knew this was going to be a long conversation. I don't know why, with such an uncontentious episode as this. This is your first time here?
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, appreciate your time. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of when you first watched the show? Have you watched all of Buffy and Angel? Let me know. Give me a little background on your relationship with the show.
I know the drill. First, you know me. I'm Jen Firelight from the comments.
Oh, hello. Yes, I do.
I'm your one that keeps telling you to watch Zeta.
Yes. Well,
and
among
Doctor
other
Who.
things. Yeah. Well, it's good to meet face to face.
You as well. Let's see. I actually watched most of the original series when it first aired.
Okay.
I'm in Canada, so I was getting it through, not even cable, it was through Tenna, through the WB when it first aired on there. And then it left WB, and I didn't get it. They finally, a couple of years later, we were partway into season late season 5, early season 6 before CW was picked up on the antenna
Gotcha.
in Canada, so I lost it for a bit. But yeah, I watched it when the original series back when it first aired.
Well, depending on what age you were when you were watching it while it aired, that means that you got the racy seasons put off for a little while, and then got to watch them. If I had watched it at the time, I'm not sure it would have been age appropriate. I'm not sure I'm still age appropriate for.
I will point out I
season
bought all the
6.
DVDs as they came out, so
Oh,
I didn't
nice.
get to put off anything.
Oh, okay.
I collected all the DVDs as they were coming out, as they were available. So I didn't put on if anything. And I actually had a friend who still had access to it, taping the episodes for me. I just didn't watch them when they technically aired for those bits.
Nice. Well, did you watch Angel as it was airing, or have you?
Yes, I
have you
did.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you're coming in kind of in the middle of this season and this conversation. Get me caught up. Season 5 so far for you. How you felt about the episodes leading up to this one, the Buffy Riley relationship. Give me the lay of the land.
Well, season 2 is my favorite season.
It's a good one.
I am a Buffy Angel shipper.
Okay.
On the other hand, I am not a Buffy with any other relationship hater.
I think that's a healthy place to be.
Buffy's allowed to have her relationships, and I've never hated her with a single relationship except for Parker.
For Cochran?
Parker.
Oh, Parker. Sorry, my audio is not the best. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that
I didn't hate her with the relationship. I just hated that particular relationship.
Exactly. I think that she saw that he was a con man and saw someone who was vulnerable to the con in that situation for sure.
And she was vulnerable.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I'm popping in now is because I'm a big fan of mental health, and this sort of needs to get addressed.
Okay.
But I'm also not a Dawn hater, let's be clear. I have mixed feelings about Dawn, but I have mixed feelings about Cordelia. I actually have more complicated feelings about Cordelia than I have about Dawn.
So when you talk about mental health needs to be addressed, you're talking about...
I do, but I'm finishing my characters before I...
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going through... I'm not a Riley hater. I'm not a Riley, Buffy in relationships hater. I'm not a Dawn hater. If I had a character that actually gives me more complicated feelings, it's Cordelia than any other character, including Connor.
Interesting. Okay.
Chew with that one for a bit. But I'll leave that for there because we're not tackling Cordelia in these episodes.
All right, good deal.
As for this, the show, including Giles, everyone in the show is horrible about Buffy and her mental health.
Yeah.
They all love putting Buffy on a pedestal, and then if she screws up once she's on that pedestal, she has to take 100% responsibility for not only her actions but everyone else's emotional involvement.
Yes,
So
that's a really good reading of the way Xander treats her. You're my hero. To heroize and idealize his version of her, but to not allow her to be, to not allow for her suffering and for.
It's why his reaction to Riley is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to skip ahead and let's look at because Faith is the one that best identifies Buffy, but it's not till season 7 that she finally identifies Buffy.
Right.
I've never felt so. I have everyone looking to me, and I've never felt so alone. And that's Buffy says, and that's you, because that's Buffy. She has them all looking to her, but she doesn't have a great support system. Not even Giles, because as has been said in this discussion, between her, remember, we're looking at the whole series, so we have knowledge that her parents have locked her up in a mental hospital. we have a child of divorce, which I am a child of divorce, so I know how that can affect you.
For sure.
We have a child of divorce who it is showing since early first season that Buffy feels responsible for it, feels like it's her fault, and it has big fears that her abandonment with her dad because of it. Which all comes around. Although I'm going to blame the Buffy's abandonment dad on Dawn and the monks.
Okay.
Because up until the monks got interfered with Dawn, her dad was the present. May have been background for birthdays, but he at least made phone calls. He at least took her for birthdays.
Yeah,
Suddenly,
the monks do a kind of rewrite on her father, that's for sure.
so, but from the knowledge, she has fears of her dad abandonment. She's had Giles try at least put her in a position where she almost died, and her mother almost died because of it. When she reaches out for help, when she came back after Anne, how do the Scoobies all treat her?
Right, yeah. Not great.
And she has to take responsibility, but no one else does. It's your fault. You have to say you're sorry.
Yeah, which kind of works within the allegory of the show as growing up and learning to take responsibility, but sabotages the duality of the relationships.
If we are these head, hearts, and things, and we're all supposed to be codependent in some version of this,
right,
then you can't say, well, then you're the only one responsible for it. Her mom kicks her out of the house and then blames her for leaving.
Yeah.
And I will point out, Buffy as a character doesn't actually verbally express her emotions a ton. How often does she really say, I love you in the series?
Yeah, not a lot.
She's not a person that verbally expresses her emotions, but she's there when leans into Willow when she's crying over Fish and hugs the crap out of her, pats Donnie on the head, cuddles up to her mom. She needs to be the rock. She does say what she needs. She just doesn't verbalize the excess emotions. And I wonder how much of that is childhood trauma, because that is stemmed from the start of the divorce and then Giles' betrayal, the council's betrayal. She's not been left. I mean, killing the master. How does everyone tell her to deal with her emotions? Go kill something.
Yeah, I definitely tried to highlight some of that in the video, but there's a broader issue throughout the range of the series for sure.
There's a broader issue. Even her relationship with Angel, it comes up multiple times, either through Buffy. Years later, it finally gets brought up that it's Xander's betrayal, and it has to get brought up because other stuff is going on at the time.
Yeah.
Like, she has reasons why she cuts off. You've seen earlier seasons where she's sitting in a window crying practically. Cut off from everyone.
How does that factor into the woods then for you? Sort of.
The combination is Riley doesn't have a personality on his own. He has said this. He has said he wants Buffy to be the center of the universe. So he does not know how to be a whole person or how to properly communicate. Buffy herself is a person who naturally cuts herself off and does not communicate well. Neither one of them communicates. The person, when they talk to people, they talk to other people. And someone pointed out the only person she talks to is Spike. Mostly true. There is a conversation with Tara that is honestly, I think, the most emotional.
Oh yeah. The next intimate conversations that she starts having with Spike, but the end of that conversation is marked by that wonderful scene with Tara, where she's sort of that's one of the better.
She has been taught by her friends, by her family, not to say what she thinks, but she knows how to express it through her actions.
Mm-hmm.
She knows how to express love through actions. But the perfect example is that she doesn't love me. Riley says to Xander. Yet Buffy comes into that apartment, smile on her face, hugs Riley. That's the girl in love.
Yeah, and an argument that someone else made or brought up with me was, while Riley is very outspoken about his affections for Buffy. When we look at the other relationships in her life, we feel their affection for Buffy considerably more than we do Riley, in terms of the way in which they show affection for her, show up for her, so forth. So, I think that's even a deeper level to the conversation of, sure, she may not say it. Riley says it and doesn't always, other than the possessive ways in which he talks to Spike. If you touched her, I'd kill you for real. It's like, well, he could have been talking about his car or a watch in that scene. It doesn't speak to intimacy and love and affection.
Exactly.
For her, but possession.
Even when her friends are trying to save her, or that big hug after she comes back. I mean, they're happy hugging her, and she looks dead. And then goes out and has emotional talk with Spike.
Right.
I think part of the reason that she gets the emotional talks with Spike and with Tara, and not with Giles, not with her mom, not with Willow, not with Xander, because she doesn't get this judgment from them.
I'd have to think about it.
Tara doesn't really judge anyone.
No, Tara does not. Tara, I get. I think Spike is safe. Spike feels safe.
Spike has been, like it or not, Spike has actually been with enough of her emotional trauma since almost the beginning.
And the source of some of it.
It's a toxic relationship, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the trained behaviors that exhibited that culminate in Xander acting the way he does. Even in this episode, he down talks Anya while they're playing that game with Dawn, trying to keep her distracted. Like, Xander is... I love Xander, but he's not always the pinnacle of great guy. None of them are, though. I think all of the Scoobies, by this point, Giles wants Buffy to grow up, but he's trying to force her to grow up too fast at a rate that she's not prepared for. Remember, as a character, she's in her late teens, early 20s. I think she's about 19 at this age right now. I think in the storyline, she's about 19.
Yeah.
So 19-year-old dealing with the fact that her mother's died. There's no father figure, at least not that's hand-holding her through a ton of emotional stuff. Giles tries, but Giles is not great on it, and Giles is old world English, so he doesn't really know how to deal with it. And this isn't a time where mental health wasn't talked about that much too. So I'm putting characters into consideration about what they would know about the time frame.
For sure.
They don't. They don't know to get her a therapist or to get someone. No one sends Buffy to magic camp to go talk to witches and let her find her inner peace.
Right.
Willow gets that, but Buffy doesn't. Xander doesn't get it either, admittedly. And that's why I said Xander doesn't get it either, admittedly. So I'm not going to diss Xander on this conversation. Okay. Xander does not get any of that emotional hand-holding either. He doesn't have any strong support systems either. Neither did Faith. The Watchers Council, because Watchers Council see the Slayers as disposable. That whole trial, they never, like it or not, that's an emotionally manipulative trial that she survived that at great emotional cost, and she didn't get any counseling afterwards. That after they tried to kill her.
Yeah.
You tell me that when she comes out of that, she shouldn't have been getting counseling afterwards to deal with the trauma of that.
No, for sure. I agree. I do want to try.
Buffy, her character, how her reactions make sense. She does say what she needs.
Sure.
She doesn't say "I love you," but she shows it. She shows it better than honestly any other character in the show, really. I can't see a better character, the character that actually shows affection better than Buffy in the show. The other characters may say it more, but Buffy shows it more.
That's interesting. Well, Jen, I need to set everyone here free at some point. It's a long conversation. It's a tough one to be your first one to be in, because I know I like to spend a little more time when it's your first time, but we're already way over. Is there something else you want to throw out specifically about Into the Woods, and then we can pick things up again at with the reunion conversation?
Into the Woods. Into the Woods is, honestly, I'm pissed off about the ending, but I don't actually hate this episode as much overall as at least you do.
Yeah, I have bad feelings.
I agree. I agree with your Chuck analysis. It's actually a perfect one, especially when you know what Chuck actually becomes in later seasons of.
No spoilers.
I'm not. I have not. I did not spoil. But if you actually know what he becomes in later seasons, it really is appropriate. Considering you're right. One, they're right. He sits dead in the space and doesn't even look. And Buffy's running, but I don't think she should have been running. Then again, I think if she's going to run, I don't think she should have made it to the plane. What I actually think is that she gets the motion, she gets the push, runs, and stops at a tree and cries. That's how I would have liked to see that happen.
There are a number of wishes we can all have for that run.
Xander emotionally manipulated her into that run. So I'm not going to fault Buffy for she hasn't had time to deal. She hasn't had time to process. And now she's being yelled at by one of her best friends to go chase after a guy that she doesn't even know her emotions on at this point in time. So I don't fault her for running. I kind of fault the show for letting her get to the airplane. Well, helicopter, but same difference. I kind of fault them. I would have much preferred if she had stopped and cried. I also, for killing the vampire, I think there's enough of a pause. I know it's meant to show she's unhinged, but her brain could have been kicking in and saying, this is still a vampire. I still need to take him, even though I'm not happy.
Sure, I still have a problem then with the casting of that character.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to fight you on that one because showing the victim that is not if it was a human, I would agree that her then killing, but the fact is they killed a vampire. It wasn't even any of a type of demon, that one that you could say this might be a good one. They killed a vampire, which suddenly means that it's a vampire, we have to kill it. I agree. They killed a victim. As Angel and Spike will say, we were victims once as well. And Buffy was a victim the second she got chosen to be the Slayer. It wasn't a choice she made. I actually have a lot of problems with Anya's. You didn't earn that power. You didn't do this. Anya's completely wrong in that speech. And when we get closer to it, I'll explain, because I can really go on, because Anya's completely wrong. Let's not count all the time that we have actually seen Buffy spend hours training.
Well, hang on. We'll get there. Let me give Sarah a chance here so that I can let everyone go, Jen. I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No problem. As I said, mental health and Buffy are my sticking points.
I get it.
We're sort of at the start of where the money situation in next season is where all that. I have lots of feelings, especially about the fact that all of her friends leave all the bills onto her, but they've been living in the house rent-free, and Giles leaves a teenager to teenagers that don't have custody.
Well, hang on. We'll get there.
I have lots of, but it's all tied to mental health. That
Understood.
It's a big conversation.
No, I look forward to it. Well, it's good to see you face to face. It's good to meet you in person.
You as well.
All right, let me go on to Sarah. Sarah.
Hey, man, do you actually have anything left in the tank?
Yeah, I do.
Are you
For
sure?
you? Of course.
Because I can hold off on mine until another time.
No, most definitely. Into the Woods, take us home. Let's
Okay, well, I don't want to talk about Riley anymore.
Yay!
I think I've said everything that I need to, until we get to the stupid one when he comes back. Except to say that I really hate that he throws the Dracula thing in her face, because that was non-consensual, and she never does that with
Yeah.
Faith.
There was a really difficult thing in the Buffy versus Dracula video that I tried to talk about that I knew would cast a... no one has brought it up, so I guess the fact that that video was 4.5 years ago has worked out well for me. But what I tried to parse out a bit of the lore in that one with why the thrall works and why the thrall breaks. And he talks about because you do not wish it. And my broad interpretation of it was Buffy feels like maybe there's something to learn, or maybe Dracula has information that she can learn from him about being the Slayer. He certainly gives off the vibe that he knows something she doesn't, right? So the thrall works. When she realizes he's full of crap, it breaks.
Yeah, my read is that like she subconsciously is kind of is curious, because what she's actually curious of is exactly what she then goes on to question, which is all about her source of power and all that.
My worry in bringing that up as a suggestion, as an interpretation of that, was that there was some interpretation of choice that she that it wasn't an assault that occurred in that, and that was not, when we're talking about magical abilities, that like we're not talking about the rules of consent in relationships or anything like that. We're talking about magic in that particular scene. But I was concerned, and I think that if that's the episode where Riley says, "Let Dracula bite you," that there is some interpretation of the way the thrall worked, sort of, that's read into in that sequence. But I don't know.
It's complicated because it's kind of like, is it a magical roofie or I don't know. But it's not him throwing it in her face is not complicated.
No.
Right.
The scene, it just could have played so differently and still ended with the same result of them parting ways or breaking up. If Xander had said what Jack said, which was, you need to decide, do you love this guy? Because ultimatum or not, it's happening right now. This is the moment. And so she runs to the helicopter because of that. Not all the patronizing, crazy nonsense that he said. Like, you could keep all the scenes the same.
Or is it Manspander?
Yeah. It's a lot.
Zansplainer. Yeah. I don't know. Because he could have asked her if it had been like, the right thing to do would be to ask someone the question. Okay, do you consider it worth fighting for? If the ultimatum wasn't there, would you, and Xander just isn't, he isn't capable of doing that, I think, because he identifies too much with Riley. I think Riley is his G.I. Joe. He ships his imagined perfect man with his imagined perfect woman, and neither of those people are actually Buffy and Riley. But I was really in what I love that you brought up in the in your video is the lack of Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Willow would have been that, and I think there's the writers failed to think enough about the woman's perspective on this, and I've been thinking about this in terms of something we were looking at in my queer theory class earlier in the week. We were reading Andrea Rich famous thing called The Lesbian in Us, which talks about how the lack of female to female relationships in literature, and then not only romantic relationships, but all kinds of relationships. And she was writing in the second wave, so it's better now. But the lack of representation of female to female relationships makes it unspeakable, and so makes it hard to makes it hard to imagine. If you
Sure.
don't see a thing, it's hard to imagine it. It's hard to.
Well, I think that, I mean, just to dumb that down to my own language, which is like, there's a normalization that occurs from exposure to different experiences and stories and all of that. I mean, I grew up in an era where there were no men or women kissing on television, or it was so infrequent that if there were, I never saw it. Such that the first time I saw two men kissing on camera, I consider myself a very progressive, forward-thinking man, but it was still a shocking thing to me because it's something that I had never seen in person. That shouldn't be shocking, but the denial of those stories and those kinds of relationships and experiences in mainstream media has that effect. I think that the text was mentioning, or did I misinterpret that?
Yeah, but I think in this case, I'm applying it not to the lesbian thing, but actually to women having conversations and conversations about their feelings. Because what we've done instead is, for generations of literature, scenes with women always end up being focused around men.
And I think arguably, like, the Willow and Buffy scenes earlier are often the same way.
We do get some with them more talking about themselves. I think that's one of the things that I like about Buffy, is that there is more of the women talking about themselves and less about men. But yeah. The
second I said that, I thought of I'm staying in Sunnydale. It's a good fight, Buffy, and it's one that I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
In the lawn. So yeah, that's not completely true, but yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. And even when they talk about Angel, they do talk about Buffy's feelings about it, not just about the man. And that is the thing that that didn't get done here. Anybody and any opportunity for Buffy to discuss her feelings with anyone. And I think that we can, I think part of that is because the writers haven't seen a lot of that done in fiction for them to model it on. And in fact, one of the things that I think is really interesting about this episode, even though I hate it as much as you do, is that there's with the Into the Woods thing, it makes you think about fairy tales and stuff. And so when has Buffy seen healthy relationships or healthy expressions of love or anything like that in order for her to model it on? The stories that she's been exposed to are, overly romantic stuff, or the failure of her parents' relationship.
Right. Yeah. There aren't a lot of models in her life at this point. One thing I was thinking when Jack and I were watching this, though, was the challenge of being a writer on a show like this at whatever particular age that you were. I think that Marty Noxon is a year or two older than I am. So at this, she was writing this when she was in her late 20s, early 30s, and when I think about, I could be wrong about that. If I am, I apologize. But either way, I'm just thinking about trying to write relationships that feel grounded, realistic, and wise, reflective, when you're at a point in your life where you may not have experienced those. She is the one in the Mutant Enemy Writers Reunion who specifically said she made a joke about her relationships being a train wreck. Mm-hmm. And so she had experienced the Parkers in her life. And so those are the relationships that feel maybe most realistic or represented in the series, rather than otherwise. And I think that's a fascinating challenge of writing believable relationships just as an individual.
And I think it's interesting to write a relationship disintegrating in a natural way. I hate I hate the fact that it goes all Yeah.
I think even Wild at Heart is better. There's cheating. It's not afraid to let the relationship end ugly, but for there to still be love. No one gets invalidated in that situation. They're both true to themselves in those final scenes, even if one of them or both of them are still wrong. Angel leaving, or specifically the end of Lover's Walk, and Angel leaving, I think he's right. There's no love lost. It's just like they've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's so frustrating, is they've done it, and they've done it well before this.
By the way, I think she's got about a decade on us, so she would have been 30.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
Yeah,
which,
like, if she was our age, she would have been in the writer's room when she was 16.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Great point. But the even at 30, I look at my own life, and just the battlefield of broken relationships that I had at that point. I'm not sure that I would have been able to ever write something wise, let alone at that age. So
Yeah, you could not try like I did for most of my 20s.
yeah. that was my 30s. Was I'm done.
So, yeah. But what I do think is really interesting in this episode is looking at Xander.
Okay.
And I'm kind of in between you and Jack, as I often am, in that I love that scene in a vacuum.
The Anya Xander scene.
Yeah, the Anya Xander scene.
I agree. I told Jack if that scene occurred in a different episode, beautiful scene.
And I don't think I don't agree with your reading that he's doing it to feel superior to her. I think he is having that, I don't want to lose her. I think maybe Buffy saying that she seems like just a convenience. I do think he's coming from a wanting to love her space, but what he's doing is called love bombing.
Okay.
Which is when you do a big romantic gesture and a big whole thing, and then you don't follow it up.
Nothing changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That moment, that I think that's something that does feel hollow about that moment. Is it occurs as a moment that is supposed to feel like change, and their relationship doesn't feel different afterwards. I think Lauren was the one who highlighted that specifically, but I think that speaks to your point.
Yeah, that's and love bombing specifically is a feature in abusive relationships or bad relationships. And I'm not saying that Xander and Anya is abusive. I think they are kind of. I think they're mean to each other, but I don't think there's I don't think it constitutes abuse.
I think that's their operating realm. I mean, and I think in some ways Anya validates the feelings Xander has about himself as a man. Men are evil. Will you go with me? I think that line foreshadows Hell's Bells, where Xander dating a vengeance demon who punished men is very confirming of the way he feels about the man that he will eventually turn into. And so I think their relationship the dynamics of their relationship are actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting in contrast with the Buffy and Stupid Face. Is
he who shall not be named anymore.
Yeah, she could. I think their relationship could have gone to a good place if they had built on this moment, because this is the conversation that Buffy and Riley never had.
Right.
It's the honest acknowledgement of feelings, and it's really important to do the honest acknowledgement of feelings. But if you don't follow it up, then it's just love bombing.
Yeah. So things need to turn, and they just didn't after this.
Yeah, and again, I think it's a feature of if we're thinking about the fairy tale angle, and then sort of like, because I really enjoy Sondheim's Into the Woods, not the film. The film is a terrible adaptation.
Plenty of people raked me over the coals for using the film, and you warned me before I finished the video, so fair enough.
I sent you a link to.
Yes, you warned me, and I got punished for it. So I appreciate you trying to save me on that one.
Yeah, I know the film looks better. So it looks better on screen because the music, the one from the play, is from the 70s.
Also, I felt like that would be me owning expertise that I don't have, which is I don't know one from the other. Ordinarily, I'd be happy to capitalize on that, but
in the stage one, it's played as comedy. It's very witty. Then they actually have a narrator in the first act, who then gets fed to the giant at the turn.
Oh, cool.
And it is actually really quite the musical itself is really quite funny, and for some reason they play it really straight in the adaptation because
it was interesting, but again, I haven't seen the other one.
Yeah, they sort of which it works fine for the first act, but kind of messes up the second act because the second act is supposed to be like a pantomime where the characters actually have to face actual consequences.
Yeah.
So it's set up like a panto, not like a film. But anyway, the narrator getting eaten by the giant is kind of fun because it's like you wrote about Chuck even without having seen the musical.
Yeah, that would have been a good extension of it.
That there was, yeah. But the thing, but that with Xander is like, again, he's playing out what he's seen in stories of the grand romantic gesture.
Yeah.
I
like that. I like that reading of that scene. I think it still poses a problem as human beings doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's a good justification for that scene happening. If I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, like he's playing out what he's seen in fairy tales, what he's seen in he's seen all those run to the airport things.
Yeah.
He's seen the declaration of love. But our stories don't ever talk about what comes after the ever after, which is the actual work. And this is where I see with Xander and Anya, is I do think they could have had I think they do have something. And I think this is the sort of fulcrum that had they, at this point, because we get them healthy for the next few episodes, if they had then like done the work on themselves and had more conversations and stuff, then they could have built something real. But Xander jumps from big declaration of love to, if I want to be with this person, that means I want to marry them. That means I'm going to propose. That means we're going to. It's just.
I mean, it's an interesting extension of him finishing the fairy tale that exists in his head. It's just, the thing that he moves closer and closer to chapter by chapter is becoming his father. His father is his only experience with what happens after Happily Ever After.
Yes, and
which I think is even more tragic.
He's basically tried to put taken a new sapling of a tree and tried to put too much weight on it. It couldn't hold it. I don't know, bad metaphors.
What's interesting, though, in terms of the love bomb and the rewriting the Riley and Buffy relationship to have the ending of this episode that it did, which it didn't earn, is that the show has both Buffy and Angel have grappled with that Happily Ever After doesn't exist. Buffy and Angel kissing and falling onto the sheets. Oh, he's soulless now. I Will Remember You, I think I'm mispronouncing the name of that episode, is about them getting a perfect day, and then the sun rises on the next one. That episode's theme is there is no happily ever after. The battle goes on, time goes on. And so for it to succumb to that here feels bizarre. There's parts of Into the Woods that feel like they're from a different show.
Yeah, they've gone from, okay, love happily ever after doesn't happen to thus it must be grand tragedy.
Right.
When it's like, no, it's just in between. It is just, hey, we weren't great for each other. Best of luck in your future endeavors.
Yeah, again, Wild at Heart shows that you can have the ending where the relationship just falls apart, but it is still deeply emotionally resonant for us, the audience, and in the storytelling. It's just that relationship never gets fixed, you know? Yeah. And you have to, like, put a Band-Aid on Buffy and Riley in order to justify her running to the helicopter, but a Band-Aid isn't going to do it. It needs a transplant to make it work.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, Boris was saying, like, why do we ask these questions about Riley and not about Angel? If they had done the narrative work to support the suspension of disbelief, then we wouldn't be asking these questions. We would be caught up in it, like we are, because we could have, like there are issues with Wild at Heart, but we don't tend to think about them all that much because we're caught up, because they did the narrative work to make Oz and Willow feel real and to make Oz feel
and we're invested.
Yeah, the narrativium has been built, whereas with Buffy and Riley, they're trying to do that with something that hasn't been built. What's been built is these are two young people who, you know, try experimenting with relationships, and it didn't really work.
Yeah. Well, I need to let everyone go. Is there one other thing you want to throw out about Into the Woods?
There is one thing that I would like to. Can I present? I made a thing.
Do it.
Can you see?
It's trying. No, it failed. Oh, I do see it. Bottom right, yeah.
Okay. Why won't it make it do the whole thing? I don't know.
Oh, it's muted for some reason.
Okay, here we go.
That's probably a function in it's going to come up muted though is the only thing. I don't know why. And I don't have the ability to unmute it. So let's we'll practice it next time. We'll save it for the next one.
I emailed it to you anyway, so there you can have a laugh on your own.
All right, good deal.
There is one more thing I want to say.
Okay, Jen, go ahead.
I forgot to say that Riley returning to the military, even though his arc before was finding independence from it, makes complete sense for the character.
Okay.
For two reasons. For the first is, at this point, he has yet to find a sense of self.
Right.
And a lot of abuse victims leave one abusive relationship to go back into another.
Okay, I would argue that's not the story it's telling, but I do need to let everyone go, Jen. Let's have that discussion the next time. I just want to say thank you, everyone. We knew this was going to be I know everyone looks very tired. I appreciate your time. I knew this was going to be a long discussion. We did. Thank you, everyone in the stream. We're talking about Reunion in 2 weeks. Hopefully there's an episode guide for us to watch in advance of that one. Otherwise, I'll just do a little dance beforehand, read some poetry, and then we'll start talking about the episode once we get there. And again, Jen, thank you for joining. Always nice to see new faces, and it's nice to finally meet. You've been a staple in chats for a very long time, so I appreciate it. But I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ian.
Bye.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.